A man is standing in his bathroom, staring into the mirror, and the mirror is staring right back with silver hair and cold gray eyes he has never seen in his life. The reflection tilts its head and asks him one simple question. Who are you? He answers with his own name, Lee Hoyal. But the little caption floating over that stranger's face spells out something completely different. Grandfell Claude Arpius Romeo, successor of a great clan. And in that one moment, Lee Hoyal realizes he is absolutely, hopelessly screwed. So picture this. A burned-out office worker wakes up one morning trapped as the over-the-top fantasy character he invented back in middle school. Silver hair, dramatic monologues, and a class that every single player on the planet rates off as garbage. The world's last demon hunter. The twist, useless is exactly what the demons should be scared of. This is the player hides his past the whole first season start to finish. Let's get into it. Let me back up and explain how our guy ended up here because this is one of the best premises in the genre. There used to be a legendary VR game called Chronicles of Arcana. Massive hit, enormous world, everyone played it. Then one day the server shut down for good, and on that exact same day the news quietly reported that a man named Raymond had gone missing. People shrugged it off. They should not have, because not long after, the world of Arcana started bleeding into ours. Tears in reality called rifts cracked open in the middle of cities and monsters came pouring out of them. Everybody thought it was the end of the world. Then something strange happened. A handful of people found themselves assimilated with the game characters they used to play. Their character stats, their skills, their entire build, all of it became real. These people got called players, and players could actually fight back. They closed the rifts, they cut down the monsters, they became the heroes who saved the world. Which brings us back to Lee Hoyal, sitting there with his coffee, slowly putting the pieces together. The character he assimilated into Grandfell was not some cool avatar he grabbed off a menu. Grandfell was his self-insert, a chuuni masterpiece he cooked up in his second year of middle school, stuffed with tragic backstory and grand noble speeches, the kind of creation that makes you want to delete every old account you ever owned. He even flinches remembering the whole thing, calling it the pointless, cringy story he played through as a kid. And now he has to live as that guy, out loud in public. There's a quieter, sadder reason he ever stopped playing too. Back when he was young, his family's business collapsed, and he had to walk away from Arcana for good. There's this gut punch of a flashback where his father is apologizing through tears for being a bad father who could not let his son keep playing a game, and little Hoyal just looks up at him and says, "You did nothing wrong." Years later, as a wrung-out adult, he looks back on all of it and can only groan. "If I had known this would happen, I would never have quit the game. It is played for a laugh, but it lands because that one decision is the exact reason he is now so far behind." Because there is one small problem, and it is actually a huge one. While everyone else spent years grinding levels, Hoyal is starting a full 10 years behind. And it gets worse because of every class he could have landed, he got Demon Hunter. In the current meta, Demon Hunter is a punchline. Weak base skills, nearly impossible to level without rare demon-related quests, looked down on by pretty much everyone. Nobody wants it. His first instinct naturally is pure panic. The idea of the world watching him swan around as a silver-haired noble, monologuing about his tragic destiny, makes him want to sink into the floor. No, he can't, he tells himself, he will get sued for this. And then without missing a single beat, the Grandfell in him straightens up and announces that nobles do not bow in the face of adversity. Same guy, two completely different problems and no off switch for either. And that twist is what flips the punchline into the whole hook of the story. 10 years ago, Action, the one holy land the demon hunters called home, was wiped off the map. The class basically went extinct along with it, so completely that the game's own class records had entire pages scrubbed clean, like the world hit delete on their whole history. Which means Lee Hoyal might be the only demon hunter left alive on Earth. The whole world treats his class like dead weight. So nobody, and I mean nobody, sees what is actually walking toward them. He looks at the wreck of his situation, 10 years behind, stuck as his most embarrassing creation, and instead of crawling into a hole, he squares his shoulders and decides he is going to do this. As he puts it, a noble does not run from mere hardship. That is his pride. The game even shows him a memorial for his dead class. A lone demon hunter's gear planted in the ground under a marker that just reads "Rest in Peace," like the whole world already dug the grave and moved on. He stares at that for a long second, quietly tells himself he is weak, and lets it harden into resolve. Then an alert pops up about a fresh demon incident somewhere out there, and Lee Hoyal, the guy who was ready to hide in his apartment forever, quietly makes a promise to it instead. He is going to send it back to hell. So let's watch him actually try, because his very first job goes off the rails almost immediately. Real quick, here's why demons are even a problem again. After the world got hit by the Great Cataclysm and slowly rebuilt itself, all those freshly rattled, anxious people turned out to be a buffet, because the story flat out tells us the negative emotions of the newly adjusted made great food for the devil. Keep that in your back pocket. It pays off in about 2 minutes. Hoyal gets slotted into a raid party, and the guy running it is a cheerful tank named Chialman, decked out in heavy clawed gauntlets, who welcomes our nervous newbie as the last member of the crew. Their target is a rift called Naal's Underground Storage, a low-tier dungeon rated for around levels 35 to 40, the kind of place Chialman, sitting at level 88, calls a perfectly nice hunting spot. Hoyal keeps his head down. He is painfully aware that the players who normally farm this place sit around level 200, a number he cannot even fathom yet, so his plan is basically to tag along and survive. At first it goes fine. They carve through the usual monsters, everyone is in good spirits, though there is one tiny off note when Xiaoman finishes a fleeing enemy a little too brutally and mutters that the beast has yet to be trained. Then hidden enemies come screaming out from behind the pillars and ambush the party from behind. It turns chaotic fast, people go down, teammates are screaming for their leader. And one of the mages barely saves everyone with a massive channeled fire spell that lights up the whole cavern. They live through it, they think the worst is behind them. It is not. In the quiet right after, while a teammate kneels to offer a healing potion to a downed ally, Xiaoman, their leader, their friend, suddenly whips around and attacks his own party out of nowhere. Everyone panics, one player screaming at him, asking if he has lost his mind, what the hell he is doing. And then his face just breaks. It twists into this fanged, red-eyed snarl, and he starts howling with laughter that is very much not his own. The whole party freezes. Terrified, trying to understand what they are even looking at, everyone except Hoyal. Because the one class the entire world called useless, the Demon Hunter, comes with one very specific gift. He can see exactly what this is. His skill lights up, his eyes go cold, and he says the two words that change everything. You're a demon. This is where Hoyal stops being the nervous rookie in the back, and shows the party why his useless class is anything but. The possessed Xiaoman sneers at them, calling them dumbasses for taking so long to realize, and hits a terrified teammate with a fear illusion, purring that humans are such easy prey. The demon wearing Xiaoman's body taunts Grandfell, daring him to swing, because if he kills this thing, he kills his own leader and becomes a murderer. But that is the entire point of a demon hunter. His strikes only bite into demons, so a demon riding a human host is the one thing on the planet he can hit without hurting the person underneath. His early swings clang off Xiaoman's heavy armor, so he starts aiming for the gaps, his power surging the second his natural enemy skill locks onto a demon specifically. When his silver blade finally slips through, the demon actually flinches back, hissing that the metal is real silver. And there is a real tragedy buried under all of this. A quick flashback shows us why Xiaoman was so easy to catch. As a kid, he was the big brother cooking at home while his little brother beamed up at him. But he grew up drowning in one specific shadow, known to everyone as nothing but the older brother of the famous Nam Teeman, mocked by his own guildmates as the guy too weak to even clear a rift while his little brother turned into a superstar. At his lowest, all he could think was that he just wanted to be a brother his younger brother could be proud of, and right on cue a demonic voice slithered in and whispered that it could help. That was the hook. The demon is even bitter about it, spitting that humans are so fake, furious that this same friendly party is now perfectly willing to let its host die. So when Grandfell finishes the job, he is not just killing a monster, he is handing a broken man his life back. He answers all that cruelty calmly, says he gets it, asks if that pain was its pride and cuts it down, catching the falling Xiaoman with a quiet "I've received it, Nam Xiaoman." When Xiaoman wakes up groggy and confused, he is himself again, fully free, and Grandfell tells him not to worry, for he is here, explaining that a demon hunter's attacks only ever touch the demon and leave the person underneath untouched. And the thing that hijacked him, it was so broke it did not even drop any loot, just a sad, penniless little imp. Xiaoman is so shaken by the whole thing that he decides to hang up his gear as an active player entirely, and instead takes a desk job as an analyst, quietly signing on with the one guild his brother happens to run. Now that rescue does not stay a secret, and it kicks off the chain of people who actually matter in this story. Xiaoman walks into the Gaon Guild Tower with a signed contract, tells the guildmaster he wants to trade the front line for an analyst's desk, and that guildmaster turns out to be his own little brother, that same Nam Teeman. And Teeman is a very big deal. He is a barbarian sitting at level 358, ranked 11th among all players in the world. And he runs the Gaon Guild, the top guild in all of Korea, as its guildmaster. He teases his brother a little, then softens and says he trusts him because after all Xiaoman is the witness, the one man who actually saw the mystery player pull off a live exorcism. And then it clicks. The party leader who got possessed, the man who nearly died that day, was his own brother. His face just drops. What? From there we get the comedy engine that powers this entire series. Gaon is desperate to recruit the mystery player who pulled off a real exorcism, a feat nobody has ever heard of. There's just one issue. That player is Lee Hoyal, and Hoyal would rather eat glass than go public as Grandfell, his silver-haired, cape-swishing middle school original character. Poor Xiaoman cannot even describe the guy properly, fumbling around before landing on the perfect line. That he looks like a fantasy novel's aristocrat, a very fancy aristocrat at that. Meanwhile, Hoyal is at home in sweatpants, bickering out loud with his own reflection about how killing one broke little imp somehow shot them up 12 whole levels, and about how to spend the pile of stat points that came with it. Grandfell, ever the noble, decides a clean environment is a clean mind. So the terrifying demon slayer spends the afternoon tidying up his messy apartment. The sneaky part, though, is this. Every one of Grandfell's traits is quietly bleeding into Hoyal's real unleveled body. The guy can copy most spells just by watching them once. his intelligence is off the charts, and his fitness keeps climbing, so he's getting healthier and sharper without even trying. He even tests it, poking at his new aptitude and confirming that yeah, he can see the raw fundamentals of magic and could cast the stuff if he just had the mana for it. And this whole time Chialman keeps texting him, and Hoyal keeps leaving him on read, half wondering if some other guild already got to the guy. That is the whole trick with this dead class, hiding in plain sight. And then the #1 guild in Korea loses its mind, because a rival might be trying to poach this legendary demon slayer first, especially now that a mage tower has appeared in Seoul and foreign guilds are opening branch offices all over the city. Teemin erupts, roaring, "Who dares to step foot into my territory?" Then rounds on Chialman and demands he tell him everything about this guy. So the biggest guild in the country burns resources hunting a ghost. While the ghost is at home dumping 2 points into stamina, 2 into agility, 7 into mana because it was running low, and 1 almost as a joke into luck. That night he lies in bed half regretting the luck point, muttering that with his luck he will probably just find a coin on the road tomorrow. The next day he finds something a lot bigger than a coin. A glowing prompt lights up in front of him, something almost no player ever sees. A class quest, titled Prologue of Counterattack. These are ultra rare because the system needs a very specific trigger to hand one out, and Hoyal quickly figures out why he's getting one. It is not luck. There was a news headline once about the rank 1 paladin, a player named Guyver, receiving a class quest, and those are the stuff of legend. Hoyal gets his for the simplest, bleakest reason imaginable. He is the only demon hunter left. The system has literally no one else to give these quests to. So it starts funneling them straight to him, quietly building the one class everyone abandoned into something nobody is prepared for. The game even flashes back to what training a demon hunter used to look like at action. Recruits dragging themselves up a 1,000-meter cliff under a screaming instructor, then getting marched off to eat while he barks at them the entire way. Brutal, thankless, exactly the kind of hell that forges the class nobody bothers to respect. His very first quest is almost insulting. It is called Train Your Weakened Body, and it demands he run 20 kilometers, do 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 pull-ups, and 300 burpees every single day. He grinds it out for a full week, leaning on Grandfell's ridiculous pride to keep going when his real body is begging him to stop. And the payout is not gold or gear. It is permanent stat points handed over for free. The kind of thing other players spend millions of one to buy one at a time. Every single thing the world threw away is quietly stacking in his favor. Then the news breaks and the whole world goes cold. Over at a place called AAU, the Anti-Arcana United, Korea's government office of burned-out former game developers who monitor every update that a shadowy figure named Raymond uploads to the world, the alarms start screaming. A brand new update has dropped a named boss into a rupture over in Russia. Count Oscura, a demon and a vampire, both sitting at level 430. When the strongest player alive is barely past 400. The office flat out says this one was never meant to be cleared, that it would flatten a whole guild, no, a whole association. Broadcasts show the biggest guilds on the planet publicly refusing to even attempt it, and the internet is calling it rigged, the hardest boss in the history of the game. And Hoyal, thinking it through, understands exactly why demons are the worst possible enemy for players. Because they grow stronger the longer a fight drags on, and they bury you under endless status ailments. It is the kind of threat everyone with sense runs away from. So of course Hoyal's class quest updates with a brand new objective: hunt a vampire. In the entire current rupture there is exactly one vampire, and his name is Count Oscura. The system is not asking. It is pointing our 10 years behind office worker directly at the monster the entire world just refused to fight. And the wildest part, human Hoyal is shaking, checking his own heartbeat and horrified to find it staying calm. While his Grandfell side has already gone ice cold, coldly promising to punish the inferior creature that dared interrupt his time. Hoyal can only stare at his own alter ego in horror, because the other half of him genuinely wants to go kill this thing, and he blurts out that Grandfell actually wants them dead. The same man, and the colder half of him is already itching to go. To reach Russia fast, Hoyal realizes he can just take the giant portal inside the Mage Tower, since that portal can teleport a player anywhere on Earth in an instant, which is the whole reason the big international guilds keep branch offices parked in Korea. Getting there, though, is pure comedy. Grandfell goes charging out the door raring to go, while poor Chialman scrambles after him fretting about the Russian cold, wrestling him out of some dramatic fancy coat and into a sensible puffer jacket. Then Hoyal heads for the tower like a regular person, which for him means riding a city bus and accidentally conjuring a fistful of fire because he learned the spell off an instructional video the night before. The driver yells at him. It is a great little reminder that this terrifying demon slayer is, underneath everything, still a slightly awkward office guy. But something about him is quietly wrong, and he knows it. His demon hunter skills all show up neatly on his status screen, things like natural enemy, silver mastery, and exorcism ritual, but that self-taught magic does not appear anywhere at all, almost like the game itself does not know what to call it. Then he steps into the Mage's Tower, feels the enormous portal humming through the floor, and gets a genuinely unnerving thought. Manifesting portal magic himself might actually be easier than the little fire trick he just pulled. A Gaon staffer even catches a glimpse of him in the crowd and blurts out that the guy looks exactly like Hoyal, but by the time anyone turns to look, he is already gone. Because this is where the story throws its whole cast onto the board at once, and everyone with ambition is converging on that same rupture. Nam Teeman leads the Gaon Guild in through a wall of screaming reporters, waving off their questions about whether Gaon will share rupture intel, privately figuring the other guilds can go challenge the thing themselves instead of watching from afar like cowards. Then the rival guild Shining shows up behind their guildmaster, Locks. Level 399 player ranked second in the world. And crashing in on top of all of it is Lini Belusai, a foul-mouthed berserker guildmaster who charges ahead reckless and swinging before anyone can slow her down, so hot-headed that when the game hands her a personal trait pop-up, the story literally censors the description, telling us she says a lot of words that have to be bleeped out. Every heavy hitter on the continent is racing for the same prize. While the guilds posture for the cameras, Teeman lays out what they are actually walking into, and it is brutal. The rupture is built like 3 rings. The outer ring is the territory's outskirts, hundreds of entrances stuffed with monsters around level 240. The middle ring is the Count family's territory, tighter and nastier with only about 30 ways in. And dead in the center sits the fortress, where Count Ascura himself is waiting. If this thing breaks open before anyone clears it, that castle spills out into the real world. Everyone stands around the outer ring, sizing it up, hesitating, doing the math on how many of them are going to die. Everyone except one guy. Grandfell shoves past a live streamer who is in his way, tells her flatly to move, says he has no patience left, and just strolls straight into the outskirts alone. No guild, no backup, no plan anyone can see. He wanders into a blizzard of a dungeon that is supposed to require a full raid team, sipping tea from a thermos in a full business suit and dress shoes, muttering that the cold is honestly making his rage boil. And that is the moment the whole thing stops being funny for everybody watching. A pack of bloodied wolves comes at him, monsters way above his level, the kind that would shred a normal solo player. Grandfell just flips on his natural enemy skill, calls them the Count's dogs, tells them they chose the wrong owner, and cuts the entire pack down like he's annoyed they interrupted his afternoon, promising to kindly teach these ignorant creatures the fear of being hunted. Meanwhile, a separate rival party, led by a blonde armored guildmaster and that same orange-haired berserker, is getting overrun by the exact same wolves and barely holding on, cursing about the absurd number of mutts and how these things have no fear at all, like they do not even know what fear is, which the woman calls really ominous. Then they hear a strange, frightened howling nearby, wolves that sound scared instead of hungry, and they go to investigate. They find Grandfell sitting on a rock in the middle of a field of scorched monsters, calmly drinking his tea. For a second, a couple of them figure he must be some streamer who tailed another guild in and got left behind, because who else would be parked out here in a business suit sipping from a thermos? When a fresh wave of enemies ambushes them from every side, a colossal pillar of light erupts from his thermos and shields the whole party. They are stunned. They ask what kind of insane skill that even was, guessing it might be some kind of alchemy, and Grandfell corrects them, cold as the snow around him. It is not a skill. What he is using is magic itself. Nobody in that rift or watching at home has the faintest idea who or what he really is. When they push him and ask if he means alchemy, he allows that it is closer to alchemy than magic, in the way it reshapes something using mana, which clears up exactly nothing for the poor party. And he is not finished showing off either. He grumbles that he will just have to push back tea time, then casually draws a bow and drops an enemy from range with a single arrow, which short-circuits the whole party. Because now the mysterious tea-drinking alchemist is apparently also a world-class archer, and one of them yells out asking since when their guild had a shot like that. Then he fires a second arrow, a fire arrow that goes off like a bomb and erases another target in a wall of flame. The orange-haired berserker watches all of it, completely thrown, half furious at being ignored and half, well, quietly catching herself thinking that he is pretty handsome. When she finally works up the nerve to walk over and thank him, he cuts her off flat. He ignored her earlier on purpose, he tells her, because he will not be saying thanks. Cold, unbothered, and already looking at the exit. Meanwhile, a broadcast studio is covering the whole thing live, treating this outer rupture as the first of the 3 rings to fall and openly betting on which famous guild will land the historic first clear and grab worldwide fame. Then he just leaves. While the rival party is still fighting for their lives and the crews are placing their bets, a clear notification goes off and the whole rupture flashes blue. Someone already finished it. Someone already walked out. Reporters swarm the exit expecting a triumphant team, and instead one man in a business suit shoves right through them, says a single word, move, his eyes flashing with a threat that shuts everyone up, and vanishes into the crowd before anyone can grab his name. The press turns to the orange-haired berserkers group to congratulate them on the first clear, and she snaps back, no comment, go interview that bastard instead. That is when it lands on all of them at once. The random nobody in the suit pushed the entire way through and cleared the whole thing solo, then walked off before a single camera could catch him. She has no clue who he is, no clue how he pulled it off, and no clue that he is already heading home like it was nothing. But every guild standing in that snow is about to learn the same lesson the hard way, because the man who just made fools of all of them is barely even warmed up. And the real monster, Count Oscura, is still waiting deep inside his frozen fortress. So Grandfell just solo cleared the outer ring and strolled off before a single reporter could get his name. Everyone assumed the hard part was over. It was not. Because the second ring, the Count's own territory, is about to open, and the instant it does, every reading on every monitor goes haywire. What happens next catches everyone off guard. The destruction rate inside the Count's territory suddenly spikes for no reason anybody can explain. The monsters in there get faster, stronger, and meaner all at once, and the analysts on the news just stare at their screens with no clue why. But Hoyel knows why, because he learned this back in action, the fallen holy land of the demon hunters. A vampire lends its power, its authority, to its creatures through its own blood. And when those creatures die, that borrowed power flows straight back to the master. So when the guilds cleared out the outskirts, they were not weakening Count Oscura at all. They were feeding him. Every kill sent his authority home, and everything still breathing inside the fortress got a power boost off the top of it. Which means there is exactly one smart move. Skip the grind, march straight at the Count, and the second you hurt him, every monster leeching off his blood weakens at once. So the gate to the Count's territory lights up, rated for levels 350 to 400 with a 5-hour countdown to total breakdown ticking over it. And of course Grandfell heads in alone. He plants himself at the gate and fully in character. Announces he is going to bestow judgment on this bastard for dirtying the honor of the aristocracy. Because in his words, an aristocrat does not take back what he granted others. The tired office worker half of him listens to this cringe hero speech play out in real time, sighs and mutters, "Very cool, Grandfell, but what about sleep?" And the Grandfell half, fully committed, fires right back, "You can sleep once you die. Same body, two halves, one of them exhausted." Iconic. Unhinged. Moving on. Inside, it turns into an actual world event. Korea's Gaon Guild, ranked 5th in the world and led by Nam Taemin, crashes into the same rupture as Japan's Inazuma Guild, ranked 4th, and the crowd instantly frames it as Korea versus Japan, two of the biggest guilds on the planet racing for the same prize. Inazuma's guildmaster, Hisagi Kazuma, cannot resist twisting the knife, telling Taemin what a coincidence it is that Gaon is standing right in front of the rupture they were headed for, and needling him for not even having a branch office back home. Taemin, bloodied and grinning in the rain, sums up his whole rebuttal in 3 words: "Gaon's worth shit." Meanwhile, Grandfell is off in a quiet corner inventing a new trick. He calls it reversal magic, a way to reshape mana for almost no cost. And he tests it first by conjuring a whole teacup out of solid stone before he ever points it at anything alive. Then he turns it on the battlefield, telling the Count's undead soldiers to go back to dust, dissolving a pack of them in a flick of blue light for barely any mana at all. And bear in mind, this guy is still 10 years underleveled. He cannot outmuscle these things, so he outthinks them. Then Taemin notices something wrong. He has barely killed anything. "I have only killed 10 since we entered," he says. "That is unreasonably too few." A green-haired subordinate who calls him master flags the truly strange part, that Inazuma, pushing the exact opposite direction across the map, is running into the same empty halls. The dungeon is way too quiet on both sides, like the enemies are being saved up for something. Right in the middle of that unease, black-haired rival Hunter strolls up with his hooded escort and practically invites a brawl, telling Taemin he cannot figure out why the man hates him so much, and that it honestly makes him want to kill him. Then Hwigging calls Taemin's phone all the way from the surface, and the second Taemin describes the wide open plaza he happens to be standing in, the streamer's voice drops and he tells him to get out of there right now. Because the enemies were being saved up for something, and here it comes. A wall of Count Oscura's knights, every one of them level 350, slams into Gaon from all directions at once, and Taemin's read on it lands a beat too late. They are not even just soldiers, he realizes out loud, they are level 350 knights. Then a much shorter word, shit. His party is suddenly surrounded and badly outmatched. This is the trap the vampire built, drop the numbers. Then hit the top guilds with everything at once, and even a ranked barbarian like Taemin is on the back foot. That is when Grandfell shows up. He raises a hand, rips stone pillars out of the ground to trip the charging cavalry, and wades into the knights himself. Taemin barely gets out a thank you before he unloads his barbarian exclusive skill, Despair, a burst of red energy that smashes clean through the pillared enemies, and roars that this battle is doable now. Off to the side, a hulking knight commander with glowing red eyes catches Taemin in a mid-air sword lock, the two of them grinding blades in the smoke while the smaller knights keep pouring in. And the clever piece of it on Grandfell's side is this. Every time his silver dagger dulls from a kill, reversal magic just resets it to brand new, so he one-shots night after night after night without the blade ever wearing down. "I do not want to bring its durability down," he notes almost politely, while taking an entire cavalry line apart one clean kill at a time. The problem is, all of this is going out live. Streamer Park Hwigging is broadcasting the entire thing to 68,000 viewers on Hwigging TV, and the chat completely loses it over the mystery man in a business suit dropping level 350 knights with a single dagger. One shot, one kill, they keep typing. What kind of dagger is that? Is it even a dagger? No gear, no visible mana accessories, just a guy in a tie. And one man in the crowd squints at the screen and mutters, that person is definitely Hoyal, then catches himself. No, there is no way, not him. He has no idea how close he just came. Off camera, Teeman has already made up his mind, telling his companion he wants this player in Gaon before Inazuma can grab him, doing the math out loud on how big an offer it would take to close the deal. And he is right to hurry. Because over at Inazuma's camp, Kazuma is saying the exact same thing in reverse, telling his own people they need to bring this silver-haired man onto their side no matter what. Two of the biggest guilds in the world, both circling the one player whose entire wish in life is to be left completely alone. This next part keeps twisting the knife on our hero. The whole point, the thing he is desperate to protect, is that nobody connects boring office Hoyal to the terrifying silver-haired noble on screen, and he keeps doing the terrifying silver-haired noble stuff on the single most watched broadcast in the world. By now the guilds are pouring into every entrance of the outer rings, funneling toward the center, and Grandfell is already deeper than any of them. Teeman finally catches up long enough to introduce himself properly. Hello, I have heard a lot about you. I am Nam Teeman from Gaon, but Grandfell has already moved on. The outer tiers get cleared, shining muscles past a guild called United Under Heaven to grab first place, and only the fortress is left. Sitting at 71% destruction and climbing. Off-duty and fresh from a workout, Hoyal shows off a rare cursed necklace he looted, its blood curse still sealed, and explains the thing that makes him one of a kind. Most players throw cursed items straight in the trash. His demon hunter skill, exorcism ritual, lets him invite the bound demon into his own head and fight it there instead. He texts Gaon a flat no on their pitch and keeps to himself. And then it happens. The Count family's fortress hits its limit, collapses, and physically manifests inside Russia, 400 people dead in an instant, the United States and Europe pressuring Russia to seal its borders. This is not a game rift anymore. It is a castle full of demons sitting in a real country. Out of that wreckage rises a keep crowned by a giant red-eyed gargoyle. And one lone figure in a suit walks straight toward the front door while everybody who recognizes him from TV begs him not to. Grandfell looks up at the monster on the roof, mutters, "What a shitty statue," and goes in, alone, to meet the thing that just killed 400 people. Alright, this is the one. If you stick around for a single moment in this entire first act, make it this one. Grandfell walks up to Count Escura's fortress and the giant gargoyle statue out front animates and swings at him. He does not dodge, does not brace, does not even change his walking speed. He destroys it in one strike, a single burst of light that folds the whole thing into rubble, shrugging that there were just too many stones in his path for this to be difficult, calls the place a shitty spot for some shitty vampire, and keeps moving. That kill triggers a fresh class quest, Hunt the Vampire. Objective, make the vampires feel the fear of being hunted. Hold onto that word, fear, it comes back in about 4 minutes. Now let's be clear on the math, he is level 100. Count Escura is level 430, that is not a fight, that is a suicide. Note, Grandfell's response to the gap is a bored so what, and he keeps walking. Behind him, the guilds are pouring in through the outer halls. Teeman and Xiaoman push through a blood-red banquet room lined with curse portraits that hit you with garbage status effects, hunger, vanity, all of it, and Teeman, whose barbarian class he admits is especially weak to this stuff, just burns the paintings off the walls to make it stop. But one person peels away from the pack. A blonde mage in a witch hat named Jessie Highness from the Shining Guild. She is told, "Do not act on your own." She immediately acts on her own straight after Grandfell because she caught a glimpse of his magic and now she is obsessed. She floats up behind him basically vibrating with excitement and asks him to teach her. He scolds her for having no manners. Great first impression. Then he stops, he can feel the Count on the other side of a door and it is way too quiet. Escura rises up in front of him, a mountain of crimson. Grandfell holds up a cursed necklace he took off the gatekeeper, announces he's going to use it as an offering to cast exorcism ritual, and calls the Count vulgar and vile for pretending to be of aristocrat blood, for playing dress-up as real nobility. The ritual ignites, and Escura, who has never been afraid of anything in his life, feels the first prickle of something wrong. He scoffs it off at first, then the survival instinct kicks in and he does the terrifying thing. He drains the power out of every one of his fallen minions, all that borrowed authority coming home at once, and you watch the crimson pour back into him from everything he ever bled into, his silhouette swelling until it fills the whole frame. He balloons up to hundreds of levels beyond even his monstrous 430. That gap was already a joke at 430 against 100. Now it is something else entirely. Grandfell buys himself a second with an illusion trick, but Escura just shrugs it off, swears to annihilate this insolent little human, and lets loose a blast that should erase him from the map entirely. But the ritual was already working. Here is the payoff, and it is so clean. Exorcism ritual does not hit like a sword, it plants a status effect, and the effect it plants is fear. Fear, the exact weapon demons have used on humans this whole story, the thing that possessed Xiaoman and used it to make a grown man scream and beg for his life. That has been the demons' entire deal from episode 1, they feed on human terror. So Grandfell took the one thing they weaponize against us, and jammed it straight into a level 430 demon lord. And Count Oscura, the hardest boss in the history of this world, the monster that killed 400 people, absolutely shatters. He shrieks. He thrashes at things that are not there. He tears the entire top of his own castle apart, clawing at horror only he can see, whole towers and slabs of stone raining down around him, while Jesse and Xiaoman and everyone else just stare. Because none of them understand what is happening to him, and this detail is wild. His level 430 health bar drains all the way out while the screen still reads no damage, the game itself confirming that nothing physically touched him. The quest pings complete the moment the fear takes hold. And sit with how good that is. Grandfell is 100 levels deep against a 430 boss who just tripled his own power on top of that. There is no number he can hit that solves that gap, so he does not try to. He wins by turning the villain's entire personality against him. Demons in this world are terror, that is the whole species, that is how they eat, that is exactly what they did to Xiaoman. And the last living demon hunter looked at the scariest thing on the planet and decided the scariest thing on the planet should find out what scared actually feels like. Look at the wording of the quest again. It never said beat the vampire, it said make the vampires feel the fear of being hunted. He did not clear the objective, he became it. And then Grandfell does something you do not see coming. He does not finish the count. He turns to Jessie and tells her to take the final blow so that she grows stronger from it. She panics, says her level is way too low. He shuts her down, basically, you must be strong if you got this far, so catch on, damn it, and just kill him. So she does. Jessie unloads everything she has into the cowering, terrified Count. A single blinding burst of magic drops straight down onto a monster more than 4 times her level, and the system rings out, Count Oscura has been defeated, and level up notifications flood every screen in the raid, everyone getting a cut based on contribution. The impossible boss, the one every guild on Earth publicly refused to touch, is dead. And the killing blow came from a rookie mage a fraction of his level. Handed the win by a man who decided the kill was worth more as a lesson than a trophy. Sit with that too. This was a world first. Every guild on the planet would have knifed each other for the credit. And he gave it away on purpose to a kid who chased him into a death trap out of nothing but admiration, because he cared more about her walking out stronger than about who got the trophy. And then Jessie does something extremely strange. She grabs something off Oscura's remains and eats it right there, and the players around her recoil and shout, "Why would you eat that?" It is played for a quick laugh, a little ominous, a tiny new quest notification flickering up too fast for anyone to read, and then buried under the moment. Because every cursed effect in the castle lifts at once, every hunger and vanity and horror the portraits pinned on people gone in a blink. And players come flooding into the throne room asking if it is real, if they actually did it, if the demon that killed 400 people is really gone. And Jessie, glowing, grateful, more than a little starstruck, turns to the silver-haired man who handed her the win. She introduces herself properly, Jessie Highness, and she asks the one question the entire world has been screaming for 8 chapters. What is your name? And this is where it all comes apart. Because Grandfell wants to reward her. She was sincere, she earned it, so he decides to give her his name as a gift. But remember who this man actually is. The guy in the bathroom mirror who nearly had a heart attack at the thought of anyone finding out he role-plays a silver-haired aristocrat he invented in middle school. The guy who screamed that he would get sued if his secret ever got out. That guy. Standing in a ruined castle in front of Gaon, in front of Shining. In front of a crowd of the most famous players on the planet with cameras everywhere. And instead of a cool hero alias, out comes the truth. I am Li Hoyal. His real name, his actual civilian everyday name, said out loud under a moonlit sky on the biggest stage imaginable to everyone at once. In front of every camera in the raid, the man who spent this entire story running from reporters just handed the world the one thing he swore to keep. This whole show is about a guy desperately hiding his past, and he cracked it wide open himself by accident while trying to be nice to a fan. The show is literally called The Player Hides His Past. He had one job, and the best part is he does not even fully clock what he just did until the moment is already gone. The fallout is immediate, and it is so funny. The news runs it on a loop. The mysterious player Li Hoyal has slain Count Oscura, and his little niece Aring spots him on the TV and starts yelling that Uncle Hoyal is famous, dragging her mom over to look. Which means, yeah, the family knows now. Hoyal is out running errands when his phone detonates with missed calls from his 3 older sisters, and he already knows he is cooked. They track him to his apartment and pound on the door until he opens up. And this scene quietly confirms the funniest thing in the whole series. The sisters and the niece start ripping into him, because about 10 years ago, little Hoyal went through a phase where he insisted everyone call him Grandfell and begged his parents to let him dye his hair silver. Grandfell was never a game avatar he got stuck with by accident. Grandfell was his own childhood fantasy, the cringy character he built as a kid, now walking around as an actual superhero. The past he is hiding is basically just himself at 13. The sisters scold him for ghosting their calls, fuss over how dangerous all of this is, promise to loop in their parents and make him promise not to tell anyone he even has sisters, so nobody can ever use them against him. And that last part is quietly the sweetest beat in the whole stretch. The most powerful player alive, the man who just soloed the boss the entire world ran from, is standing in his own kitchen getting lectured like a little brother, and the thing his family is scared of is not the demons, it is losing him. Then they leave and he checks his bank app, and the reward for Count Oscura has landed. 110 billion won, that is not a typo, he nearly leaves his own body. Turns out these payouts come straight out of the pocket of some absurdly rich figure named Raymond Sean, rumored to be the CEO of a company called Cosmo, personally funding the people who clear these ruptures. On top of the cash, killing Oscura dropped him rare loot. One piece is the vampire Count's urn, a unique rank cursed item that landed straight in his inventory, and the other is the necklace he burned as an offering during the fight, which somehow came out the other side with its curse lifted, renamed the Necklace of Noble Promise. Killing Oscura also rocketed his level up so fast he cannot sleep, lying awake agonizing over the most relatable rich guy problem there is, which is what on earth to actually spend it on and whether he should finally just tell his family the truth. So overnight, Lee Hoyal is rich, famous, and very much public. There is a funny wrinkle though, even with his name on every channel, the government office that tracks all this, the AO, cannot actually find him. They dig through the entire Arcana database and there is no registered player named Hoyal anywhere in it. He said his real name to 1,000 people and it somehow made him more of a mystery, not less. The past he hides is still technically hidden. Which does not stop the feeding frenzy. Gaon wants him so badly that Timan and Xiaoman decide to just hand over their entire share of the Oscura loot as a recruitment gift. Shining is circling too, with Jessie suspiciously insisting she knows nothing about him. She just watches random videos, totally normal, no crush here at all. Everybody wants the man who killed the unkillable boss, and Xiaoman being Xiaoman needles him for being over the moon about what he calls loose change. You are that happy over some loose change, pathetic, to which our dignified noble replies, shut up, aristocrat, beautiful working relationship. But the world does not slow down. Arcana pushes a brand new region, the Yusra Archipelago, a legendary treasure island that could never even be found back when this was only a game, and now it is real and open for business. And every guild on Earth turns toward it at the exact same time. Hoyal meanwhile heads to the Mage's Tower for the first ever academic society of mages, and gets absolutely mobbed, a wall of fans screaming it's Lee Hoyal, wanting photos, autographs, the whole circus. He brushes them off with his usual warmth, which is to say none, snapping a flat screw off at one pushy fan who gets too close. At the entrance, Jessie is working the door, and she explains that the shimmering crystal wall is illusion magic cast by the Tower Master himself, and that only invited guests can pass through it. So naturally, Grandfell walks straight at it and vanishes from everyone's sight. The crowd panics, insisting there is nothing there but a plain wall, asking where on earth he went. And a moment later he is on the other side, having caught Jessie as she collapsed from exhaustion, calmly noting, I knew it, that is a praiseworthy illusion. He saw through the Tower Master's masterpiece with no invitation and zero effort, which is supposed to be impossible. Inside is Crystal Hall, and running the whole society is the head mage Marcello. Blue-haired, young, brilliant, the Tower's rising star. He shows off a spell he is proud of when he calls Ignition, built by fusing science and magic together, and he openly admits it still throws off unpredictable side effects he cannot iron out, so he asks the room for research help. And Grandfell from the crowd tells him flat out that his spell is flawed. That the wobble comes from an estrangement between skill and magic, the exact same problem he personally overcame in his own power. The room is stunned because it took Marcello months just to cast this thing one single time. Somebody recognizes the heckler as Lee Hoyal, and instead of being insulted, Marcello is thrilled and recruits him as a guest researcher right there on the spot. The size of that flex is hard to overstate. The best magical mind of this entire new world spent months just to cast that spell one time, stood up in front of the whole assembly and admitted he could not fix its flaws. And a random guy in a business suit stood up, told him exactly what was broken and why, and mentioned in passing that he already solved that same problem himself. The head mage's response was not to have him thrown out, it was to hand him a job. And keep in mind, this is the very first academic society of mages since Arcana became reality. The whole magical world in one room. And the new guy just wandered in past a barrier none of them can beat and out-theorize their best mind on day one. Then cut to the Yusra Beach, where Lini Belusai and half the rival guilds on the planet are already lounging around. Banners from factions all over the world planted in the sand, the Lion Heart Knights, the Shadow Mercenary Knights, the Explorer Alliance, all of them drawn by the island's reputation as Arcana's ultimate treasure vault. Online, fans are melting down over footage of Hoyal openly roasting the head mage and getting a job offer instead of a ban. He's a national celebrity now. The name he never wanted to say is on every screen in the country, and the entire hunter world is converging on one tropical island, chasing gold. But gold is not what Hoyal came for, and whatever has been sleeping under that island for all these years is finally starting to stir. So this is where the whole story shifts gears, and the best part is that it does it right there on the page. Everything you have watched up to now, the awakening, the count, the real name he threw out in front of the entire world, the game just quietly filed all of it under a single word: prologue. Because the moment Hoyal settles in as the Mage Tower's newest research guest, the system drops a brand new class quest on him, and it even comes with a name, Brewing, which is a pretty ominous thing to call a to-do list. The first line reads like a curtain going up. The prologue has ended and the season of fire has begun again. Dear last remaining demon hunter, brighten the world veiled in evil. Then it tells him exactly what he is here to hunt: the 7 deadly sins of Yusra Archipelago. And Hoyal already knows that name. Way back in action, the fallen holy land of the demon hunters, he learned the legend of them. The system even paints the picture for him again: 7 cloaked masked figures standing in a row, each one a sin wearing a body. Pride, envy, wrath, gluttony, lust, sloth, and greed. The scale of that is worth holding on to. The count was one nightmare boss and he nearly broke the world. This is 7 of them, and greed is only the first. He does a quick gut check on the local wildlife: the golden sand scorpion, the emerald tiger, all the normal rift monsters crawling around the island, and rates every one of them off in a heartbeat as far too weak to be the thing the quest is warning him about. The real threat is something else entirely. And honestly, as a viewer, that one little word doing all that heavy lifting is kind of perfect: prologue. The game just looked at the single scariest fight of the story so far and stamped it the warm-up act. So when Marcello hands him a plain little hexagram brooch and tells him proper joint research has to wait, Hoyal just nods and pockets it. And there is a fun detail buried in here because the brooch looks cheap, the kind of accessory a normal mage would glance at once and toss, but Hoyal clocked its hidden value instantly, and Marcello knows he did. That is the whole point of the test. The catch is that the head mage says they cannot do real work together until Hoyal fixes the same flaw in his own magic that he called out in Marcello's spell: that clash between raw skill and true magic. Hoyal just shrugs it off in his head. He already beat that exact clash once before, so he pretty much treats the brooch as a cheap loan he fully intends to use and moves on. Marcello's pink-haired disciple Cleo brings over the monoregion gear and the magic texts he asked for, and when somebody wonders aloud whether he actually likes such a plain, simple gift, his status window flickers open for a second, and it turns out the Escura kill launched him hard. He is already level 134 and climbing. He has a much bigger appointment to keep. But he is not the only one circling Yusra. There is a crew out there called Supernova, and their name keeps landing next to a very ugly headline: people walking into rifts and never walking back out. The news tickers spell it right out: missing people incident in the rupture, Supernova involved again. Their most vicious member is a masked player named Kinver, blonde, a bandana pulled up over his mouth, rumored to be the worst of the whole rotten bunch. And Kinver decides to say hello the coward's way. He corners a teenage streamer who is live at the user portal, waiting for the star of the show to finally arrive, and he sends a message straight down the lens: tell Lee Hoyal it is no fun if he goes overboard with the clown act. He will be watching. Then he strolls off and leaves the kid shaking. Somewhere across the island, Hoyal catches the buzz about that bastard everyone is suddenly talking about. And his entire reaction is one flat word: Supernova, filed, threat noted, not impressed. Now, one thing about Hoyal and warnings: they have never once made him hesitate, and they are not going to start now. He tells himself there is no reason left to hold back, this is an official quest, and he lands on a line that is pure him: if there is evil, we will eliminate it, that's all. Then he heads for Yusra, still wearing his full black office suit, which on a tropical beach island is its own quiet comedy, and the second his shoes hit the sand. Feels it, not a monster, not a rift, something older and wider than either, an influence of a demon on a completely different level from anything he has ever faced. His natural enemy skill lights up and just stays lit permanently the whole island long. And instead of getting nervous, he grins that unsettling little grin and pretty much thanks the evil for kneeling at his feet before he has even found it. I like how you've been kneeling at my feet, evil, haha, geez. I'm real excited. Then he gets his first taste of the local wildlife up close. Off in the jungle, a streamer named Park Hwigging is running Hwigging TV, swearing to his chat that he will never once disturb the great Lee Hoyal, joking that the guy is out here farming the easy stuff on purpose. And right on cue, Hoyal stumbles onto another party getting shredded by a status card monster, an emerald tiger, level 420, and their leader is barely holding the line. That leader has a name and a serious resume, by the way. Shrek, player ranking 3rd, a fencer out of the guild's second son. Elite by any normal measure. And he gets to watch a random guy in a suit walk up and erase a level 420 beast with one fireball, a spell Hoyal has been quietly refining and calls Ignition. And that name should ring a bell, because Ignition is Marcello's baby. The fusion of science and magic that the head mage of the entire tower spent months just learning to cast once, the one Hoyal strolled in and told him was still flawed. So now here he is out in the weeds, casually throwing a cleaner version of it at wildlife. One blast, gone. Shrake's whole team just stares while Hoyal happily scoops up the rare crystal it dropped, a pure emerald crystal unique rank, and pops it in his hand like it is a piece of candy. Already scheming to pass the rest off as research through the tower. Shrake, give him credit, gets scared for exactly the right reason. He tells his people to dig up everything they can on Li Hoyal because this man might be far more dangerous than the public has any clue. And then the island answers back. The whole sky flashes a warning that every single player on the archipelago reads at the same instant. User Archipelago is being taken over by greed. A meter appears next to it, destruction progress, 7 empty boxes, and one of them quietly fills in. The first sin is not sleeping anymore. It is waking up, right under everybody's feet, fed by every greedy hand reaching for the island's gold. Hoyal looks out over the treasure hunters swarming the beaches and mutters the obvious. The petty greed of all these humans is exactly what woke you up. The prologue is over. The sins have begun, and the only demon hunter left alive on Earth is standing on the island where the first one is clawing its way back into the world. Greed is awake under the islands now that destruction progress meter is ticking, and Hoyal's quest is very specific about the job. The full text loads in and addresses him straight up as the last remaining demon hunter, and the key wording matters. It does not say kill greed, it says stop it. Inspect the 7 deadly sins and shut the resurrection down before the meter fills. And Hoyal, being Hoyal, reads the fine print and works out exactly what is powering the countdown. It is the treasure. See, Yusra is not just an island. It is the game's legendary treasure vault. 10 islands packed with gold that could never even be found back when Arcana was only a game. And the instant it opened, every guild on the planet came sprinting for the loot. Over on the Shining Guild's frontline, you can watch it happen in real time. Their guildmaster Lox, ranked second in the whole world at level 399, stands there with his red-haired Lieutenant Camilla. Both of them glued to that destruction meter as the boxes tick up, gossiping about a report Jessie sent back from the Mage's Tower, and teasing that her little crush on Hoyal could not be more obvious. Then another box fills, because a guild called Unified Under Heaven just grabbed a treasure, and Shining's whole crew tenses up because every treasure somebody else claims is one they lost and one more push toward the demon waking. Greed does not need a champion. It just needs people to be greedy, and there is an entire archipelago of them fighting over gold. You cannot talk that many people out of free treasure. Hoyal knows it, so he lands on the only fix that fits the way his brain works. If greedy hands feed the demon, then he will take every treasure himself first before anyone else can lay a finger on it. His companion thinks that is completely insane and points out the meter fills either way. Treasure grabbed is treasure grabbed. Hoyal charges off anyway. And the piece that makes his whole ridiculous plan actually work is genuinely clever, so stick with me. Grandfell, the character Hoyal built as a kid, was written as the heir of an enormous ancient family. In the story of the game, he was already rich beyond counting before the plot even started, so the emotion called greed is something he literally does not have. The narration says it flat out, that because he had already tasted the absolute pinnacle of wealth. Greed was never something he possessed. He can hold the single most priceless treasure on the island in his hand and feel nothing at all, no pull, no hunger, not one spark for the demon to grab onto. And that is the whole engine of this fight. Look at the contrast. Everybody else who touches that gold feeds greed, their hunger is fuel, their want is a doorway. Hoyal is the one man alive who can pick up the exact same treasure and starve the thing instead. Because there is nothing inside him for it to hook into. You cannot corrupt a man with money when money means absolutely nothing to him. That cringe backstory he cooked up in middle school, the impossibly rich heir with the silver hair, just quietly turned into the single most broken counter the game could have handed the last demon hunter. But first he has to survive the neighborhood. On one of the islands he runs straight into the Lion Heart Knights, an order of elite NPC knights out of the old Arcana days, remembered as the best knights the game ever had, led by their captain Harkin Kingsguard, level 600 and every inch the storybook paladin. His knights bristle at the rude guy in the suit, but Harkin just asks the newcomer his name, and gets a flat Li Hoyal. Harkin senses something different about him, clocks the strange brooch on his chest, and before that thought can even finish, the sky falls in. Meteors, the island's owner has arrived. The great turtle of golden cans, level 450, rears up and starts carpet-bombing the battlefield with fire from the heavens. The knights get scattered, one of them, Enoch, nearly gets flattened, and Harkin throws his own body in front of an attack to shield his men. It is chaos. And then, without a word, without a single line of a chant, Hoyal raises a hand and a colossal wall of ice slams up out of the ground and seals the whole battlefield off. The knights freeze in place. That is not supposed to be possible. Explorers cannot do that, no mere explorer cop is magic on that level. Hoyal just rolls his shoulders. Hell yeah, monsters like that exist to be put down. What follows is a masterclass, and streamer Hwigging, watching from a safe distance, just about loses his mind narrating it. Hoyal points the close-range knights at the turtle's exposed head and legs, while Harkin rallies them with a roar of charge with honor, conjures icy platforms to catch men falling into erupting magma, and then builds a giant staircase out of ice, copied detail for detail from the inside of the mage's tower. So the knights can climb straight up to the kill. When the great turtle finally drops, Harkin and two of his knights, Enoch Lauren and a knight named Jessica, do something that tells you everything. They hand their entire share of the credit over to Hoyal and let him level up off their kill. And Harkin recognizes that brooch now. It is an ancient tower artifact, once gifted by an emperor, and the whole order goes to one knee. They pledge themselves, their swords, and their shields to the brooch's owner, Li Hoyal, swearing to be his sword and shield across the whole archipelago. Then Hoyal walks up to the island's actual treasure and takes it, an old broken crown ranked epic, and the meter does not so much as twitch. The onlookers cannot believe their eyes, not even a speck of greed on the man. Meanwhile, out on the darker edges of the archipelago, other players are learning the price of that hunger the hard way. There's a mercenary crew led by a man named Park Hyunjun, who borrowed loan shark money to buy Hydra poison, planning to wipe out Harkin and Hoyal both in one shot. Before the plan can even launch, their scout gets silently cut down from a distance by an attacker nobody sees, then wakes up alive and rattled, with no clue why he was spared. There's even a quiet beat where Hoyal notices a little squirrel-like critter watching him from a tree, gives it one long look, and the hidden killers spying through it fail a straight fear check off nothing but eye contact. Then the plan falls apart, the money is gone, and Hyunjun snaps and murders one of his own men over the cut. The system flashes the message you never want to see. You have murdered another player, your karma stat has increased, and the instant he does it, a demon flares to life directly behind him, because that is greed's real trick. Every killing done out of avarice does not just fill the meter, it feeds the demon directly. And worse things than a status alert start crawling out of the men who give in. The race for gold is not slowing the resurrection down, it is the fuel, and that meter is already halfway full. By now, Hoyal is hoarding treasure to starve the demon, the Lion Heart Knights are his, and that destruction meter is running out of empty boxes. This is the point where it stops being a race and turns into a countdown. The last contested treasure island still has a landlord, and it is not the welcoming type. This is also where the big guilds finally pile up on each other. Gaon and Inazuma and Shining all converging on the same prize. Tempers already boiling, one crew nearly coming to blows over who grabbed what before the real problem even shows up. The great lava koi, level 420, erupts out of the ground and floods the whole arena with molten rock, shutting down every guild's ranged attacks and pinning everyone in place. Nobody can even get close to it. So Hoyal and Harkin just walk to the front, and Hoyal pulls the impossible on camera one more time. He cools a lake of lava into solid stone with a sweep of his hand, something the crowd swears the system's mana limits should never allow, then shapes that stone into spears and drives them into the boss. He is nearly tapped out by the end of it. So when the koi finally goes down, he lets Harkin land the finishing blow. The contribution goes to the Lion Heart Knights, and Hoyal collects what he figures is the very last treasure he needs. And that is the exact moment it all goes wrong. Somewhere else on the archipelago, another treasure gets taken over by greed, and this time the demonic pressure Hoyal feels is far heavier than anything before it, even though he did not feel a flicker of greed in himself this time. An explorer named Jude has just been murdered by one of his own companions, a man who cracked under the pull of the gold, and now a voice answers the killer. It calls itself greed, one of the 7 deadly sins, and it does not thank him. It mocks him, it sneers that his mentality was too weak, that it could not even hand him a proper skill in exchange for what he gave it. Hoyal sprints toward it, shouting for the attacker to stop, diving to shield that same terrified kid from the jungle who is caught right in the middle of it. A new class quest snaps open in front of his eyes, and every player on the island feels the same dread land at once. Yusra's deadly evil is brewing. Then the corrupted treasure detonates in a pillar of crimson light, and the system spells out the 2 words nobody wanted to read: beginning destruction. What happens next you kind of have to see to believe. A blinding pink shockwave rips across the sky, and the 10 separate islands of the archipelago slam together into one single landmass. People are screaming one word for it: destruction. And out of the dead center of that brand new continent, something enormous claws its way up into the daylight. A massive golden castle. Someone finally says out loud what everyone is too scared to. No, that is the castle of greed. The nest of one of the 7 deadly sins. Hoyal's paused quest updates in his vision. The resurrection of greed is almost complete, and his orders now are to reach the treasure at its heart and stop the whole island from being corrupted. And then the ground answers the castle. Undead warriors tear their way up out of the earth all around it, a swelling horde of them, and Hoyal does not flinch for a second. He turns and shouts for everyone to prepare for battle. Back in a Gaon office, the analysts watching the emergency stream go pale because the numbers coming off that horde are monstrous. The regular monsters are ranking level 500 and up. The boss is level 600 and beyond. Their call is immediate: evacuate the island, lock it down. Nobody sane sets foot in there, and that lands hard because Hoyal is not even close to those numbers on paper. And he is about to walk into the front door of a level 600 nightmare like he is late for a meeting. Harkin does not care about sane. He rallies his knights to hold the line, then turns to Hoyal and renews his vow: asking if his oath to be Hoyal's sword still stands. Hoyal tells him plainly that he's going to be leaning on him no matter what comes. Harkin asks if he really means to walk into that, straight at the demon, knowing exactly how bad it is, and Hoyal gives him the answer that basically is Hoyal. Demons are meant to be defeated. There is no other option. Harkin looks at him and notes there is not a trace of fear anywhere in his eyes. The Lionheart Knights throw themselves at the undead, chanting that they will carve a road so Sir Hoyal can reach the evil, while the fencers shrike and half the crowd hang back, calling it a suicide mission no guild should ever touch. And then comes the part nobody sees coming. As the undead start clawing back to their feet mid-fight, two guilds who do not team up with anybody, Gaon, led by their red-haired fighter, and the Berserkers, led by their orange-haired firebrand, suddenly charge in shoulder to shoulder, straight into the Golden Palace after Hoyal. That costs those two more than it looks. Gaon and the Berserkers are proud, independent, the kind of guilds that do not share a battlefield with anybody. And here they are lining up behind a man in a suit to run at the exact thing every analyst on the planet just screamed at them to evacuate. The suicide run into the heart of greed is on. One demon lord, one castle stuffed full of the dead, and the last demon hunter alive walking right through the front door. And what he finds waiting on the other side of it is a story for the next stretch. Hoyal just walked through the front gate of the Castle of Greed, and for once in his life he is not alone. The Gaon fighters and the Berserker fighters who charge in after him are still furious about it, the orange-haired Berserker guildmaster flat out calling him a psycho the moment he tells the whole group plainly, "You will help me." Then it turns into a competition. Gaon's winged saints and the Berserkers start racing each other to dump buffs and blessings on his side, elbowing for the honor of helping first, and Hoyal turns every bit of it down because he does not believe in anything as stupid as a god. Classic Hoyal. But the deeper they push into all that gold, the more the castle pushes back. The undead keep clawing up out of the floor faster than anyone can put them down, resurrecting the instant they fall, and Harkin rallies the Lionheart Knights to hold the line so Hoyal can reach the evil at its heart. His knights throwing themselves at the horde and chanting that they will carve a road open for Sir Hoyal, which is what makes what happens next hurt. Then Harkin goes down. He takes a hit shielding the group, and the second he hits the floor, something reaches into him. A memory that is not quite his own floods in. A king he only ever calls Your Majesty. A commanding general of the demons sighted in the northwestern valleys. A mission he swore to carry out that ended with his entire nation vanishing without a trace, and the mage tower investigating it collapsing right behind them. When the king wonders aloud whether God has abandoned them, Harkin refuses to believe it, insisting the demons are only blocking the path to God, and he vows before the throne, "I, Harkin, will go and defeat the commanding general of the demons and thereby open up the path to God." He is sent out to face it, told a single flat word too late, and struck down. The next thing he knows, he is stumbling through modern city streets, crowds filming him on their phones, searching everywhere for His Majesty, until he finds a glowing figure and breathes, "I've been wandering all over the place to return to you, Your Majesty. But have you been here all along?" He kneels and vows all over again, "I will become your sword and slaughter all enemies." And the voice that answers him is wrong. First it snaps, "You said you'd be my sword." Then it giggles, "Hee hee, oopsie." A bladed shadow lunges out of the dark. The ugly part comes fast. When Harkin comes back up, he is not Harkin anymore. He swings on his own people, screaming that they are dirty demons who dare to speak His Majesty's name. To him, every face around him has been replaced by a demon's, and the man who swore to protect these people is now the deadliest thing in the room. Two of his knights, Jessica and Enoch, shout that it is them, it is not demons, and he answers, "You dare to mock my knights as well now." And then, "Speak no more," and a blade. Enoch ends up buried under a boulder, battered but alive. Somebody in the wreckage says the captain has become more like a disaster than a human, and it is hard to argue. Keep in mind this is a level 600 captain, the single strongest sword in the entire castle, and he is now pointed the wrong way, cutting down the people he came to save, while a near miss sends Hoyal's whole life flashing in front of his eyes. Thinking of Timon and the others in the line of that blade. If you have been with this story since day one, you already know exactly what he does next because you have watched him do it once before. Way back in that first dungeon, party leader Chialman got possessed mid-hunt and turned on his own team, and Hoyal is the one man alive who can undo that. Same gift, much scarier monster. He throws up a hand and freezes Harkin mid-swing, so fast the watching knights cannot process it, one word cutting the whole rampage dead. A voice speaks out through the captain's mouth, sharp and suspicious, telling Hoyal he is far too clear-sighted for a mere human to be standing there untouched within the blurry mess of demons, and it demands, "Reveal your identity or I will slay you." Hoyal stalls, sweating, absolutely certain he is done for, and then a glowing hand closes around the thing living inside Harkin and drags it clean out into the light. Harkin wakes up with clear eyes and a brooch glowing on his chest, and every Lionheart Knight in the room drops to one knee. They swear themselves to the brooch's new owner, to Sir Hoyal, his sword from this day on. His status screen ticks over at the same instant. Exorcism ritual just ranked up to level 2, a brand new feature bolted onto it. He mutters at the demon he just yanked loose, "Let's be friends," and lets out one long, relieved sigh. He does not get to enjoy it. Someone screams his name, a warning to look out. A burst of red and black energy comes at his back out of nowhere, and all the last demon hunter alive manages to get out is a startled, "Huh!" before it reaches him. The whole island has been building toward this. The first of the 7 deadly sins, the one the system named back when it told him the prologue was over, sitting at the dead center of its own castle. And Hoyal reaches it in the strangest way imaginable. Not by kicking down a door, but by getting pulled straight inside the demon's own mind, blinking a startled "huh" as the throne room dissolves and a whole legend unfolds around him. What he finds waiting in there is exactly that, a legend. A peaceful little kingdom on the treasure island of Yusra, generations ago, that pulled a half-drowned stranger out of the surf and took him in, fed him, healed him, treated him like one of their own. And the stranger repaid every ounce of that kindness by coming back with an army, trampling the kingdom flat, and slaughtering its people for the jewels buried under their floors. When the young crowned king stands in the wreckage and demands to know why, the invader only laughs in his face. "Why share anything," he says, "when I could have them all if I simply steal them?" That is the whole story. That is where this sin was born, out of one act of pure, bottomless greed. Back in the here and now, Hoyal does something quiet and devastating. He raises a glowing hand and, in his own words, decides to interfere just a tiny bit with the palace's foundation. Out in the real world, every player watching sees the enormous golden castle start to crack and buckle and cave in on itself, and the thing nesting inside it completely loses its mind. It rears up in full for the very first time, a monstrous winged horror roaring, "You dare destroy my palace, my wealth." It declares itself out loud. "You dare challenge me, greed of the 7 deadly sins, you a human, the cardinal sin," and it does not just attack. It reaches into every single person in Hoyal's group at once, seizing their minds, promising to hollow them all out and keep them as undead guardians standing watch over its horde for the rest of time. Hoyal breaks the whole group free with a single shout of "That's enough." And then he says the line that flips this entire fight on its head. He looks up at this thing calling itself the first and greatest of all sins, and he tells it, flat and certain, "You're neither greed nor a cardinal sin." Because it is not. That is the twist the whole arc has been quietly hiding. This was never a pure demon squatting on a throne. It is a demon wearing a person like a coat. It is also the exact moment the show quietly tells you what kind of hero Hoyal actually is. Anyone else on this island would have swung for the kill and called it a clean win over a deadly sin. The one man who could see the human underneath refuses to. He does not want a body count. He wants the person back. He calls up a skill card. Exorcism Ritual Level 2, the exact rank up he earned tearing that other thing out of Harkin 1 chapter ago. The passive keeps status effects off his allies, and the active does the truly unhinged thing. It invites the demon of his choosing straight into his own mind to be dealt with there. He spends a vampire count's urn as the offering, conjures a single glowing orb, and speaks straight past the monster to the human being trapped somewhere underneath it. "Wake up, last king of the Yusra kingdom, it's time to correct your mistakes." A second voice answers from deep inside the demon, exhausted and unmistakably human. "That's enough, my palace has already fallen." The sin panics, snarls a name in disbelief, "Hakuna, you've betrayed me," and the ritual detonates in a pillar of light. When it clears, the cardinal sin is simply gone, and standing where it was is a man. Broad-shouldered, dark hair, brown skin, gold at his wrists and his throat, staring down at his own hands in total shock because he had chosen to die. He threw himself into that demon on purpose, ready to go down with it to finally end its evil, and somehow, impossibly, he is still breathing. The watching crowd cannot even process what they are seeing. Someone gasping that a person has emerged from the remnants of the cardinal sin. Hoyal, meanwhile, gets absolutely buried alive. His screen erupts with a wall of "You have leveled up" notifications, and a fresh hidden quest counting down from 9 seconds, and the greatest moment of his entire career becomes the last demon hunter alive panicking that no human could possibly read all of this in 9 seconds. He beats the clock. He pulls an item out of his inventory, an epic treasure the game labels Island's treasure, the broken crown, and sets it gently on the dazed survivor's head. The man gasps, "My body," as full control comes flooding back to him for the first time in who knows how long, and the caption finally tells the whole watching world who he is. Hakuna, the last king of the fallen Yusra kingdom. In that instant his bond with Hoyal maxes completely out, affinity, influence, and a brand new feature labeled simply authority. Then the payoff lands everywhere on Earth at once. A system message hits every single player on the planet. Somebody has revealed the secret of the Yusra archipelago, and out in the real world, the buried kingdom itself starts to rise up out of the ground. An entire ancient nation, gold and ruins and centuries of hoarded treasure, climbing into the daylight, the first nation-level discovery the world has ever seen. Guild leaders take one look and start calling it El Dorado. And right in the middle of all of it, Hoyal just introduces himself. "I am Li Hoyal." The watching crowd nearly short-circuits trying to work out whether a king should be that casual with him or that formal. Later alone, Hakuna quietly admits he heard that line, "Correct your mistakes," from inside the demon. He confesses what he tried to do to himself. He tells Hoyal he's a king who killed every last one of his own people with a single mistake. And he asks what on earth Hoyal could want in return for saving him and handing back his crown. Hoyal does not ask for treasure. He offers to help the man win back his pride and rebuild his kingdom from the rubble up. Hakuna says it feels like Hoyal reached right into his head and read his mind. And already the guild leaders are circling for the reconstruction rites. An eager fencer named Shrake of the Second Sun Guild practically tripping over himself to volunteer his people first, blurting out a starstruck, "I'm Shrake. Nice to meet you," before anyone else can get a word in. So there it is. The first of the 7 deadly sins, the one the story promised us the moment the prologue ended, is down, not killed, exorcised with a living king pulled out of the wreckage of it. And the entire planet just watched a nobody in an office suit pull it off, which means the entire planet now knows the name Lee Hoyal, which, for a guy whose whole existence is built on hiding exactly who he is about to become a very real problem. With greed down and a kingdom back on its feet, the story finally exhales, and so will we, because this next stretch moves fast. First, the price of being famous. Since the whole world just watched him take down the cardinal, the whole world immediately starts arguing about whether he actually did. Forum threads spring up wondering if the mystery office guy really killed a deadly sin all by himself, or whether his powerful new friends are just quietly covering for fraud, and it spreads fast enough that Chialman and Timan end up scrolling through it looking rattled. It is mostly noise. But one person is asking a much sharper version of that same question. Jessie Highness, the blonde, witch-hatted shining mage, the one who landed the finishing blow on Count Escura a whole arc ago, corners him when he is too exhausted to dodge. She has read him closer than anyone. Her own teacher Marcello called Hoyal more than a genius, and that stuck with her, so she lays it out. The cardinal sin never once flinched at his exorcism, ritual the way a demon is supposed to dread that exact power, which does not add up. And then she asks him, sweet as anything, "So the power you're using, it's magic, right?" Hoyal dodges it clean and slips away, half convinced the whole run-in was a dream until he finds the note she left teasing him. But she is the first person to stare straight at the one thing he has spent this entire series hiding. And she is very clearly not going to let it drop. Then there's the small matter of the sword. Reviewing his own stat sheet late one night, Hoyal keeps landing on the same problem. He has monstrous stamina and ability scores and almost nothing that actually helps a demon hunter fight up close, and he desperately wants one reliable close-range option. So he thinks back to a technique he saw Harkin pull off exactly once, Sword Aura, and decides to try recreating it at home, in his kitchen, mid-carrot chop. Of all things, the slicing energy wave that rips off the knife carves clean through the outer wall of his own apartment building, and the pedestrians down on the sidewalk just point up at the pretty rainbow of light spraying out, blissfully unaware they nearly got cut in half. He passes out for 6 days from the strain of it, wakes up to a text from his landlord about the repair bill, finds absolutely nothing useful online, and does the responsible thing. He goes to find a teacher. Getting to that teacher means going to Yusra Kingdom in person, and at the border a guard stops him cold, demanding proof of citizenship he obviously does not have, right up until King Hakuna himself sweeps in, welcomes him as his dear savior, and hands him authority equal to the king's own on the spot. The teacher is Harkin, drilling his Lionheart Knights on a beach in the freshly risen kingdom, Jessica Bright barking corrections down the line. Harkin tells him flatly that no mage manifests Sword Aura without a decade of brutal training, and when Hoyal claims he already can, the captain dares him to prove it on the Oath of a Lion, an unbreakable relic wall marked by only 2 sword slashes in all of history, one from the first ever Lionheart captain and one from Harkin himself. Harkin even offers up his own legendary level 600 blade for the attempt. Hoyal cannot wield anything that high, so he waves it off, picks up a plain dull-edged practice sword instead, and carves a wave of aura across that beach so violent it sends the captain who invented the technique flying and screaming for help. He asks a cool good enough, and then his HP bar instantly crashes to critical, and he is the one calling out for help. The man who planned to spend 10 years teaching him ends up admitting, within a single morning of real focus, that Hoyal has stabilized the whole thing and there is nothing left to teach. Harkin asks if he will walk the path of the sword to the very end together, and Hoyal turns him down, saying he will not give himself to the blade alone, and the two part on real respect. Then Hoyal wanders off into the jungle and one-shots the island's level 300 field boss, the Silver Mane Leopard, waving off its intimidation skill as something that does not even exist, all while frantically apologizing to his family in his head for the death he is completely convinced is coming. He drops it in one anticlimactic swing across roughly a 70-level gap and just stands there wondering why its attack was so slow. And quietly off in the background, one more person starts circling. A scholar at the mage tower named Matthijs Dean Carl, whose entire field is something the other mages sneer at and call black magic, is handed a few of Hoyal's leftover treasures to praise, one of them carrying a strange aesthetic stat he has never once heard of in his life, and comes away shaken, sensing something in the man he cannot begin to explain. When Hoyal, half asleep from training, tells him to spare no cost and just get the best results, Matthijs quietly clocks him as absurdly wealthy and far more interesting than any research partner should be. So he sends a bird carrying a glowing scroll, inviting Hoyal to meet him alone at a place called the Floating Garden. Hoyal has no clue what any of that is really about. We do not either, not yet. But between a rival mage who suspects his power is something it should not be, and a black magic scholar who just caught the scent of a past Hoyal has buried very, very deep, the walls around his secret are quietly starting to close in. And that buried past is about to stop being a joke. Quick reset before things get heavy. Hoyal is globally famous now, the man who took down the first deadly sin, and he is quietly signed on at the Mage Tower as a researcher. That is exactly where the walls start closing in. He finally answers that scroll and climbs up to the floating garden to meet the tower's black magic scholar Matthijs Dean Carl, face to face for the first time. Matthijs takes one look at him and can already feel it. That this is no ordinary man. He wears a ring that measures a person's black magic sensitivity, and the way he explains it, black magic feeds on black mana and black mana grows from the depth and the darkness of your past. The deeper the wound, the stronger the well. Matthijs is not some smug court wizard either, and the show makes a point of that. It gives you his whole sad resume in a quick flashback. Years back at the Academic Society of Mages, he got laughed out of the room for practicing what everyone else sneered at as creepy folk sorcery, the joke of the old circles, humiliated in front of his peers. He rebranded the work, called it black magic, and for one brief window they actually took him seriously. Right up until he ran headfirst into a phenomenon he named worldview interference, something that had bled out of the Mage's Tower and manifested onto Earth, and he spent years failing to crack it. That is the man standing in front of Hoyal. Someone who has quietly measured a lot of people all his life, hunting for the one reading that would finally make his work mean something. Then Hoyal walks in and the ring turns the blackest he has ever seen it. Not dark. The darkest reading of his entire career, so far past the scale it visibly shakes him. He just stands there rattled, wondering out loud where on earth this person's darkness is even coming from. Because in his science, a reading like that does not come from nowhere. It comes from something that happened. The comedy of it is this. Hoyal assumes this stranger is somehow reading his embarrassing middle school backstory, and he snaps at him for having zero manners guessing a person's past on a first meeting. Matthijs, mortified, actually offers to report himself to the tower for disciplinary action, and Hoyal has to wave him off. But the reading is real, and the show is telling you flat out, without telling Hoyal, that the goofy cringe past he keeps laughing off is sitting on top of something genuinely dark. Matthijs even invites him onto the path of black magic academics, points out that black magic still works when your normal mana runs dry, and hands him a little quest to win over the senior mages, which Hoyal clears, quietly climbing his standing with the whole tower and unlocking a new function. File that black mana idea away, that the darkness pours out of the past. It pays off before the block is over. Then the past stops being the only problem. Back in Korea, a rival guild called Mythology has been playing dirty, and its guildmaster is Baek Yisal, heir to a corporate empire, the country's top financial celebrity, and someone who radiates a very specific shade of dark purple magic, the exact color Matthijs was just describing. The show even shows you a National Assembly member wrapped in that same purple haze. A public official quietly bought and paid for so Mythology can muscle in on Yusra. She cancels every appointment on her calendar because there is a man she wants to meet, and she heads straight for the Yusra kingdom. She walks into Gaon's guarded tent without an invitation. The guards posted outside just fell asleep on their own. Nam Teeman starts accusing her of attacking his people, and a fanged demonic face flickers behind her smile as she locks him in place with mind domination magic, the kind of power that is not supposed to work on players at all. Teeman cannot move, he cannot even shout. And that is when Hoyal strolls in, senses something is off, finishes straightening his tie, looks her dead in the eye and says it plainly. You're a demon. She does not deny it. She calls herself a succubus and promises that not even Lee Hoyal can resist her, which is the exact wrong thing to say to the last demon hunter. His natural enemy skill flares, the one that stacks his combat stats against demons. He refuses to give her a single second without an appointment, and he humiliates her live in front of a swarm of streamers who have crowded outside the tent. One of them a Japanese idol screaming for the camera to catch every second of it. She came to seduce the most famous man alive and got dismissed like a walk-in with no booking on stream to a huge audience. But alone afterward, the real picture comes apart. There's a second voice riding inside Baek Yisal, and it is cruel. It calls her by name and tells her to shut up, that she is nothing without it, that everything she has, the revenge, the money, the fame. Even her father finally admitting she was his daughter, only happened because it helped her. It reminds her that she was the one who begged it for help in the first place, and now she wants to play owner of the body. The succubus power was never hers. It was on loan from a parasite, a separate thing that made a pact with a hurting girl and has been driving her ever since. And when the thing decides it will simply kill Hoyal through her, she turns the blade on her own throat instead. Hoyal even feels his own body start moving on its own in that instant, and he cannot tell whether she is coming to attack him or throwing herself in the way to shield him. She would rather bleed out than let it use her hands to hurt him. The voice warns her that they will both die from the blood loss and jeers that she cannot survive without it, and all she answers is, "But I'm not." The demon panics, hisses that he saw me, not you, and flees. Leaving her collapsed and bleeding as a passing stranger with an eye patch scoops her up screaming for help. So the girl everyone pegged as the villain just chose to die protecting the man she came to seduce. And that night, back in his room in Yusra, Hoyal feels natural enemy switch on again. Something is sliding in through the dark. He does not flinch. He just says, "Come in, demon, you're not the guest I was expecting, but I'll be nice." So who walked into his room? It is the parasite, the thing that was wearing Beak Yisal, and it comes in gloating. It tells Hoyal she died for nothing, that her sacrifice meant less than nothing, and for once his cool cracks. "Shut it," he says, and then the show does something quietly brutal. It gives you her whole life in a few frames laid out like a news segment. Beak Yisal was bullied as a kid at school and in her own neighborhood. The kind of childhood that leaves marks you cannot see. Her father, the Mythology Corp CEO Beak Jusung, called her a mistake and would not claim her, not for years, not until after she awakened as a player and became too valuable to ignore. And then all at once he was standing in front of the cameras saying, "I'm proud of my daughter Beak Yisal." She was not anything special to him even then, not really, just an asset that finally paid off. All she ever wanted was to get back at the people who hurt her, and to be loved by the one man who never once bothered to love her. That is the person who put a blade to her own throat rather than let this thing kill Hoyal. And the parasite could not care less. It brags that it never needed her specifically, that it could have worn anyone. She was just a convenient broken door it walked through. The demon mocks every bit of her life as pointless. Right up until Hoyal's natural enemy fear takes hold and it recoils, all its swagger gone, sneering that it does not converse with prey. Now we reach the moment the whole video has been walking toward. Hoyal fires the exorcism ritual at the demon, the same beam of light that has torn demons out of hosts all season. Except this time the light does not behave. It reaches out and pulls him, and he realizes with a jolt that he is not standing in a normal ritual anymore. He is inside Grandfell's mind, his own avatar's memory realm, and the caption spells it out for him. That child is Grandfell, so this is Grandfell's mind, and there is a child in it. A small boy the memory names as Grandfell, surrounded by a demon attack, fire and monsters closing in on every side, and somewhere in the chaos a light-haired woman is crying his name, Grandfell, over and over, reaching for him. Present-day Hoyal feels it land in his chest, what the memory calls synchronization, his own heart aching with a rage that was never supposed to be his. A grief that predates him by a lifetime. That rage has a source. This is where it started. This, the memory tells him in his own voice, is the rage from back then, the vow that made him swear to kill demons for the rest of his life. Then the memory grows up. The small boy is gone, and in his place a tall figure in a dark suit stands alone over a field of fallen bodies, and he speaks. "My heavy sins, I will pay for them with death." Sit with that for a second, because this is the hinge the entire title swings on. All season, Hoyal has treated Grandfell like a joke. The silver hair, the theatrical speeches, the chuuni one-liners, the tragic orphan backstory he built as a middle schooler and never stopped being embarrassed about. Go all the way back to the very first scene of the whole series, the bathroom mirror, a stranger's silver-haired face staring back and asking, "Who are you?" And him quietly answering Lee Hoyal before deciding the whole thing was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Then remember what happened at the peak of the prologue, the night he finally brought down the count, when he stopped hiding and shouted that same name out loud in front of the entire watching world, Lee Hoyal, and every one of us read it as the ordinary salaryman finally owning the hero he made. 2 reveals already on the board, the name he hid from a mirror, the name he claimed in front of everyone, and now right here the show snaps in the third one, the one it has been holding back the whole time, the wound underneath both of them. That is the trick the title has been playing on you. He has spent this entire story burying that past because he was sure it was cringe, sure it was just a kid's embarrassing fantasy. It was never cringe, it was real. Somewhere under the persona is a boy who watched demons take everything he had. An oath sworn in that grief, and a grown man carrying sins so heavy he has already decided the only currency that pays them off is his own death. The player was not hiding an embarrassing backstory. He was hiding a wound. That is the title of the whole thing right there, said out loud, and it recolors every gag you have laughed at for the last hour, and it quietly clicks something back into place from earlier. Remember Matt Thighs and his ring, the blackest reading of his entire career. Black mana pouring straight out of the depth and the darkness of a person's past. It was never reading Hoyal's cringe middle school phase. It was reading this. A well that deep only comes from a wound this deep, and the show set that measurement up chapters ago just to detonate it here. The light fades and he is back on his feet, and there is a wounded girl on the ground in front of him. He kneels next to the unconscious Beak Yisal, the one who chose to bleed rather than be a weapon against him, and he tells her the truth as he sees it. "I saw your pride, that is the whole verdict. Not you're a monster, not you're forgiven, just I saw the one thing in you the demon could never take, the one thing that was always yours." It is the line that flips her from enemy to ally in a single breath. And it is exactly the read you would expect from a man who has just been shown that the worst part of a person is not always the truest part of them. And because this show refuses to let a single sincere moment sit still, That is precisely when the Lion-Heart Knight Enoch charges in on patrol, having felt a demon nearby, sees a suited man kneeling over a beautiful unconscious woman. Jumps to the most scandalous conclusion a person can possibly jump to and bolts right back out the way she came, red-faced and stammering. Hoyal just sighs, long day. He does not get to rest. A new tag lights up on his interface, a class quest, and it gives him a bad feeling before he even opens it. Out in the real world, the game company, the AAU Korea branch, drops an official announcement. A brand new region surfacing in the sea off Hokkaido, the northern city of Frost, and the office staff and the streamers lose their minds over the shops and the restaurants and the whole new metropolis to explore. Ichwigang TV right there riding the hype, people joking that not even a demon king could ruin Frost's restaurants. Hoyal opens his quest and it does not read like a patch note, it reads like a sentence handed down. Demon King Raid. The king of the demons, his grasp is expanding. Dear last remaining demon hunter, bring down the throne. There's a demon king waiting in Frost, and the system is handing the job to the only demon hunter left alive. Because there's quite literally no one else to hand it to. And it is not the first he has heard of them either. Way back in his Arcana training, a hooded instructor drilled it into him that demon kings are monstrously strong, that there are many of them, that they have their own ranking. Memorize them. Grandfell Claude. He shrugs it off the way he shrugs off everything, checks his stat points, dumps a few into luck and prays to it like a little shrine. Dear luck, please. And the quest promptly stamps itself postponed, saying another quest has to be cleared first, which just confuses him. That something is already happening. Every guild on the planet turns toward Hokkaido at once. In Azuma's Hisagi, Kazuma gets told by his own leadership that if the guild fails at Frost, he can answer for it with his life, and he just says yes. Locke scrambles the Shining Guild while his members argue over whether to pack ski gear or swimsuits. Namteeman and Chialman's party race to the portal, and get stopped cold at the gate by a demand nobody has ever seen. No entry without a passport, which has never once happened for a game region. They force their way through anyway, and on the other side there's no ski resort and no metropolis. Frost is already gone, drowning in a hellish red, and a towering demon is standing in the ruined streets tearing screaming citizens apart while the survivors run for their lives. The city fell before anyone was even allowed in, and the last demon hunter is walking straight into it. Pick it up right there with the last demon hunter looking down on a city that has already lost. Rewind a few hours first. Before the guilds even reach Frost, Hoyal had spent the night back in Yusra, and he wakes to find Beekyaisal very much alive, perched on the edge of his bed, thanking him for saving her and offering to repay the debt with anything she has, her body, her mind, her pride. He answers by getting weepy over an invoice. Because the Mage Tower waived his item crafting fees, and Marcello, I love you. King Hakuna flatly refuses to let his savior march into a Demon King city alone, insists that demons should be wiped out but that Hoyal's life matters more than any of it, and gathers his forces. Harkin kneels and renews the vow that he will eliminate every last demon and he will be Hoyal's sword. Beekyaisal volunteers to come along as his guard. Penance for climbing the kingdom's walls uninvited in the dead of night, so he does not go in alone, he goes in with an army. Cut back to the present and it is already ugly. Teeman notices the guild rankings have stopped updating, which is wrong. Rankings do not just freeze, and a drone feed answers why. Inazuma is being slaughtered inside Frost. Kazuma waves off the government's offer of bomber support just before a demon crashes into his group and kills one of his own, a man named Kajiro, and as hunters drop around him and someone chokes out that they are all going to die. Teeman's fury boils over into a crackling lightning-charged barbarian power that he hurls straight into the horde. Then Grandfell arrives on a cliff above the ruins with the Lion-Heart Knights at his back, and the survivors realize the man they needed just showed up. He looks out over Frost, and he sees what the Demon King has done with the dead. The citizens have been staked and displayed across the whole city, arranged to mock its culture, its history, everything it ever was. Hoyal does not raise his voice, he just makes a promise: I will make sure that you meet a death you deserve. They hit the southern gate with a plan nobody expects from a raid: rescue the survivors first. Kazuma privately calls that foolish, given how much bad blood sits between Inazuma and Frost, but the Lion-Heart Knights carve the gate open anyway while Locke peels off to take the west. And then the strange part. Pale, light-tinged magic falls like water droplets and freezes an entire section of the castle solid, then simply blasts the gates wide open. And a field quest snaps into existence for everyone at once. Frost has fallen into the hands of a Demon King. Recapture Frost, contribution rate 0%. Every guild on the map is now racing for points at Frost's 4 gates, which is where the show remembers to be funny. A braggart named Liu Zhen Chun, Guildmaster of Unified Under Heaven, ranked 19th, is cackling on a pile of rubble about his 1800 contribution points and crowning himself the Lord of Frost, blissfully unaware that the quiet-suited man nearby has already racked up more than 35,000 and is still climbing without lifting a finger. Reinforcements arrive too, the Shadow Mercenary Troops, Captain Kitschai with Lockett and Alcar, sent by King Hakuna. And a soldier nearly faints when he realizes the quiet gentleman he has been escorting, the actual field commander of this entire operation, is the famous Lee Hoyal. Namteeman, hungry for those contribution points, ignores a warning that the demonic energy inside has only gotten thicker since the gates blew open and rushes the front line anyway. Hoyal shouts for him to fall back, that the whole interior is full of demons. And a horde bursts out of the dark at Timon before he can even react. Then it stops being funny. A Frost barbarian recognizes one of the mercenaries' sword styles and reveals a secret entrance. A barbarian's only route into a massive underground shelter the size of the Paris catacombs, where the survivors are supposed to be hiding. The group slips into the spell-veiled tunnels and finds the threshold lined with corpses and a bloody ritual symbol painted on the wall. Someone summoned a demon down here, and when they push deeper it gets worse. Because every summoning circle scattered through the tunnels is wired into one enormous working, a single ritual built out of blood and bodies to feed the demon king himself. This is Jessica's hometown, and she thanks Hoyal quietly for guarding the recovery of her city's fallen soldiers, and he is so hopeless at comforting a crying woman that his own knights roast him for it right there, telling him he genuinely sucks at this. The rank and file guards nearby grumble about being stuck hauling dead bodies instead of fighting, and never clock that the suited gentleman running the operation is stacking contribution points past 40,000 just by standing near the front, because to him the recovery is not a chore, it is the whole point of coming. An earthquake rolls through, and a wave of undead cavalry comes at them, except the monsters are not attacking, they are fleeing something. Harkin is spotted cutting them down alive after everyone assumed he had been crushed, and Hoyal reads the board perfectly. Those were not an elite squad, they were scouts checking on the ritual that the corpse recovery just disrupted, which means a commander is on the way. On cue, one steps out of the dark and confirms it with a single word. Correct, he calls himself the commanding general from the Northwestern Valley, and he takes one look at Hoyal and knows him. The little knight captain, he says, from decades ago. Hoyal tells him it was only a few years ago, and the general just smiles because time runs differently in Arcana. 4 days in there is barely a day out here. He notes that whatever this world has done to Hoyal, it has made him far stronger than the boy he remembers. And he wonders aloud which of them is stronger now. Then, to make his point, he lifts the entire castle of Frost off the ground on a pillar of purple light and vanishes with it into the sky, daring Hoyal to come find him up there if he wants his revenge. The system answers with a fresh class quest. Get rid of all 10 demon commanding generals scattered across Frost. 0 of 10. That last thread is the one that matters, because Hoyal, holding up a collapsing shelter with ornate ice pillars shaped like Frost's fallen warriors, spun up from that near-free aesthetic stat while he burns his mana all the way down to nothing to keep the roof off the survivors, lets one sentence slip. Frost would not be in this state if he had managed to kill that thing all those years ago. He met an old enemy again, and it slipped his grasp a second time. And over a hazy image of a robed figure, and a woman in white, he murmurs that he has no right to face his majesty again. The general who knows him from decades ago, a lost liege, a failure he never paid off, it all ties straight back to the oath from that memory, the same heavy debt he swore to settle with his own death. Down to his last drop of mana, he still drops the first of the 10 generals, a shrieking bird-like horror called Hellbird Cupican, and then grades his own sloppy fight a flat fail, muttering that he forced too much into the manifestation step and ought to write that down for next time. 1 general down, 9 to go. And somewhere above the clouds, on a stolen castle, a demon king waits on his throne while the past Hoyal buried so carefully keeps dragging him one more step toward it. Frost has already fallen, the whole castle is hanging in the sky on a pillar of stolen magic, and the system has handed Hoyal one job with an ugly little counter bolted to it. Clear 10 demon commanding generals, 0 of 10 so far before he even thinks about the thing sitting on the throne up there. And the story finally gives that thing a name. The demon ruling this raid is called Decoravia, one of the 72. The kind of demon that doesn't fight with a sword so much as with a sky full of birds, whole flocks that move like one hand, familiars that answer a single will. For now, that is all we get. A name, a title, and a silhouette way up on a castle that used to belong to somebody else, looming over the ruins in a red splash the size of the skyline. Down in the ruins, Hoyal and the Gaon Guildmaster Nam Timon link back up with the last barbarians of Frost. And the moment they do, the barbarians recognize Hoyal on sight, the leader who lit that earlier pillar of light, and they greet him and Timon with the kind of rough, backslapping respect that somehow lands more genuine than anything a guild ranking ever handed either of them. This is where you meet the man who has been holding the entire city together. His name is Charon, the father of all barbarians, and for decades he has been quietly keeping Frost's survivors alive, hiding them from the cold, from hunger, from demons that dragged barbarian corpses through the streets just to break everyone's spirit. Barbarians are strong, brutally strong, but they are weak to light. So every one of them who died buying a civilian a little more time died knowing the fight was stacked against him going in. The generals paraded their dead through the streets to rub it in, and Charon kept sending his people back out anyway night after night, because a survivor kept alive one more night is a survivor. A barbarian named Ares greets Timon like an old legend just walked into the room, calls him the little barbarian, and you can watch it land on Timon's face, the realization that these are his people in a way the Gaon leaderboard never once made him feel. The barbarians' close ranks around the two of them, still shaken from the great fire that tore through Frost, and they talk about Charon the way you talk about a father, because to every one of them that is exactly what he is. Then Hoyal splits the group. He tells a barbarian named Alkari to move every rescued survivor down to the Yusra Kingdom, the safe haven he built an arc ago, and asks Timon to guard them on the road because he still has business to finish up here. And that business quietly is personal. He tracks down a level 500 commanding general, a monstrous bird, and instead of just killing it, he interrogates it, demanding to know whether it was the one that ended the aura traces of someone he lost in the city long ago, a name he does not say aloud. The story does not stop to spell out who that was. It just lets you feel that Grandfell has history in this city, threads that reach back decades, the kind he does not talk about. Meanwhile, Timon can't shake a bad feeling. Charon went out scouting and hasn't come back on schedule, so he peels off alone into demon territory to go find the old man. And that is when a notification hits him that should not be possible. A class quest. Those are one per class, one per world, and Timon is a barbarian, so for one to land in his lap means only one thing. The previous holder is gone. The quest is called the Barbarian's Secret Skill, and reading it, Timon understands in the worst possible way that Charon is already dead. He is the new father of the barbarians now. And he inherited the title the second the old one stopped breathing, alone, out in demon territory with nobody watching his back. Back with the group, the barbarians notice he is gone and report it up to Alkari, worried because the little barbarian went off by himself and has not come back. He finds the body first. Then the demon commanding General Amikin finds him, hauls him up into the air by the arm, and does the one thing you never do to a grieving man. It mocks the dead. It calls Charon's last words pathetic, sneers that the old mutt was foolish enough to run into a losing fight, and something in Timon just snaps clean off. His class quest completes right there, the system flashing that he has earned the class-exclusive skill, Call of the Wild. His hair and his eyes lighting up like a struck match as his wildness stat rips straight through the ceiling. He doesn't fight Amikin so much as take it apart, gets both hands on it, tears into its wings and sends it shrieking off into the sky, swearing up and down that it only dropped its guard for a second. Then the adrenaline drains out of him and Timon folds, down in the snow, wrecked, apologizing to a dead man for being reckless, already dreading how his brother Chialman is going to take the news. Meanwhile, on the far side of Frost, Hoyal is turning the 10 general problem into a to-do list. A whole swarm of them comes down on him at once, led by one called Horican, and he answers it by copying the flash of stunning light and the lightning that Jesse Highness used back in the Count's fortress, swatting entire packs of them out of the sky in a single move. The system keeps stamping the same phrase over the carnage, that he has defeated them with the highest rate of confrontation, and the counter just keeps climbing. 6 of 10. But mid-slaughter he feels it, that wrongness, that certainty that Timon is in trouble, and he moves. He gets there right as a pale new general is leaning over Timon's crumpled body, and Hoyal steps in between them like he has been standing there the whole time. He already knows. I heard what happened, he tells him, and turns to handle the general. Timon is embarrassed about it, actually. Ashamed that he fought like an animal instead of a guildmaster, that he peeled off his escort duty to chase a feeling. And Hoyal, who is not exactly a warm guy, gives him the truth, that he respects anyone who fights for honor, and then deletes the next pale general in a single explosive strike to make the point. A masked demon somewhere off to the side gasping at how casually it happened. This is Timon's whole arc paying off. By the way, the kid who first showed up as Chialman's little brother, scrambling to recruit a mystery player into his guild, has finally grown into his own power on his own terms, standing over the body of the man who made him a barbarian in the first place. Around them, the campaign is basically Hoyal's personal stream now. Shining's Lox and Camilla team up to ground one flying general. Camilla's twin range shots pinning it down for Lox to charge in and finish. Real teamwork, good work. And half their viewers leave the broadcast anyway because Lee Hoyal is casually clearing generals nearby. 8 of them solo, each one a different way, while entire guilds bleed resources fighting a single one. One general begs for its life. He throws a line a demon once spat at him right back in its face. I do not converse with prey, and that is the end of it. Chat does the math out loud, 8 commanding generals down solo, everyone killed a different way, while whole guilds are pouring everything they have into finishing off just one. The broadcast overlay keeps stacking those system lines. General defeated, highest rate of confrontation. Until the numbers stop meaning anything, and it is just one man walking through a boss rush like it is a Tuesday. And then it is done. 10 of 10. The field banner flips to recapture Frost complete. The guildmasters start comparing siege contribution scores. The unified under heaven guildmaster Liu Zhen Chun crowing about his 11,000 points, until somebody points out Hoyal's total makes the entire leaderboard look like rounding errors. And the survivors start setting up a coronation at the ruined throne of Frost's lord. They even find Harkin alive in the rubble, half dead and beaming, so relieved that His Majesty hasn't abandoned us. Hold on to that phrase, it comes back, and then a stranger strolls up to the throne, dusts himself off and introduces himself. Nice to meet you, I'm Frost's Lord Sarian, which is a great line, except every single person who has lived in Frost their entire lives has never once seen this man before. The livestream chat catches it before the crowd does, viewers typing out Lord Sarian, like a question nobody in the city can answer. Hoyal doesn't even let him finish the bit. Stop the act. His natural enemy flares, the skill that spikes his power against demons and rings like an alarm whenever something truly evil gets close, and the whole room lands on one cold conclusion. Everyone is certain they have finally cornered the Demon King, sitting on the throne of frost in a dead lord's face. The monster they spent this entire section clearing generals to reach was hiding in the middle of the celebration the whole time. At least, that is what it looks like. So the party is a trap, and the guest of honor is a Demon King in a stolen body. This is where the show pulls the rug out from under everybody, including you. Because when Hoyal forces the thing out of Lord Sarian, what tears free is not the Demon King at all. It is a servant. Sarian gets one honest human line in before the mask comes off, that he is the only one left alive after failing to protect his subjects. That this is his own failure and not some misunderstanding. And then a demonic mass rips out of the possessed lord, calls itself the Lord of Frost you have all been so dearly searching for, snarls at Hoyal for insulting a vassal of his majesty, and rockets straight up into the sky to fuse with the entire floating castle of Frost, wrapping the whole structure in a pillar of red energy you can see for miles. Sarian was never the boss. Sarian was the doorman. For a second it looks like it caught Hoyal too. The scene cuts to a shadow of him getting struck down out of the air by a massive dark winged shape, with a smug little caption joking that Lee Hoyal died the end. He did not. It is an illusion, and it is Harkin screaming at him to get it together that snaps him out of it, the demon sneering that Hoyal has quite the interesting talent for seeing through it. But while everyone is busy with the light show, the real move is already finished. That red pillar has been feeding a giant egg, whole waves of lesser demons hurling themselves into the vortex to complete the offering, and the demon tells Hoyal the offering is done and he is about to be reborn. And this thing is not staying politely inside the game either. Over in Hokkaido, in the heart of the city where the raid is bleeding into the real world, an emergency goes out, the streets drop into lockdown and citizens are told to evacuate right now. Orders come down for every Korean player to pull out of Japan, because if the thing rising over Frost fully wakes up, Japan is next on the list. In a quiet modern room somewhere, a woman watching a vision of that red tower goes pale and whispers that it is over, that the world is over. And off to the side, a hooded stranger who has been running the numbers the whole time says out loud, almost bored, that he just chose the option with the highest chance of survival, and that the incarnation of the world's end has opened its eyes. That is the size of what Hoyal is standing under. So he does the only thing a demon hunter can do. He sets up the exorcism ritual again, the same ritual that freed Xiaoman, freed Harkin, tore greed out of a king, and this time the demon greets him with a line that lands funny in your gut. We meet again. Like the two of them have a history Hoyal has not told anyone about, he does not take the bait. Harkin throws his own body in front of Hoyal's to guard the defenseless shell he leaves behind during the ritual, drops a wall of stone to shield him while the demon groans about the boulder trick again like this is not their first dance. And then Harkin squares up with his sword lit blue and invokes the last order he was ever given, that he, Harkin, will complete it here in Arcana right now. And after Hoyal tells him flatly, I believe in you, he buys the time with steel. Over at the North Gate, Timon and Ares are fighting a wave of demons that just will not thin out, no matter how many they put down, and one of the fighters is yelling that they are wasting themselves on physical blows and should be spending the effort on spells. Then mid-swing a demon boss just stops. Its eyes light up, it says the Demon King is calling, and every demon on the field disengages at once and pulls back together like a tide going out. That is never a good sign. And the story lets it sit there for a beat before the reason shows up. And then the egg hatches, and the reason for all of it clicks into place in the ugliest way. Those 10 commanding generals everyone worked so hard to clear, every one of them got sucked into this egg the instant it died. The shell cracks open and hands all 10 of them right back, alive, resurrected, and suddenly the whole field is a fight everybody already won once and now has to win all over again. With Hoyal pinned inside the ritual, the demon goes for his head directly. Status abnormality possession, it wants to crawl into his mind and see if he can handle it. Hoyal's whole answer is one word, screw off, and it fails. It just fails completely and the demon reels back from him, clawed and red-eyed and horrified, choking out why you are, and never finishing the sentence. It reached into Hoyal expecting a human mind, and it found something it did not have a word for. The show holds that cut on purpose, no name, no explanation, just a demon that touched the inside of a man and flinched. Because what is underneath Hoyal is dark. When his aura floods out this deep, bottomless, ominous darkness, the little vassal demon completely loses its nerve, shrieking that no matter who or what he is supposed to be only human, and then it does the least dignified thing a villain can do. It runs, turns into a panicked little crow thing and bolts, begging him to stay back, don't come near me, stop, human. While Hoyal chases it flat across the battlefield, yelling at it to stop, and finally corners the thing against a wall of its own dark energy. Found you. And because he is nothing if not thorough, he fires the exorcism ritual one more time on the cornered imp, throwing a lady's necklace and a demon's treasure chest and a whole pile of other valuables onto the offering pile. The system noting the ritual is reinforced by the sheer number of things he is willing to burn to make sure this one does not wriggle away. And that is when the ground splits open, because the vassal was never the real one either. The true Demon King erupts up out of the earth, and this time there is no disguise and no borrowed body. Decoravia rises in her actual form, enormous winged skeletal against a red sky, and yes, her. The story makes a point of confirming right here with a translator's note and everything that the Demon King everyone kept calling he is female, and she is the size of the skyline. Somebody on the field actually says it out loud. You didn't really think that little thing was the Demon King, did you? Every general, every disguise, every trap up to now was just her clearing her throat. And now the shape those 72 names are supposed to take unfolds in full, a mountain of wing and bone over a city she already burned once, blotting out what is left of the sky. A system caption calls it, Demon King Decoravia is about to show her true form. And the whole field just stops to look up and feel exactly how small they are. So humanity does the only thing left to do. Every guild still standing pours back into frost, all of them at once. Inazuma's Kazuma holds the line against the resurrected generals, spear lit, red hair whipping, hollering at his people to stay alert because 2 more are still coming in, and you can feel how much heavier this second round is. Everybody grinding back through a fight they thought they had already put in the ground. Locks and Camilla and the whole Shining Guild wade back in. Second Son answers the call, and Xiaoman finally picks up his phone, gets back on his feet, apologizes for making everyone worry, and gets shoved a borrowed greatsword because he showed up to the end of the world with no weapon on him. All of them converging on one idea, that if a single person on Earth can win this, it is Li Hoyal, and they cut him a deal without even asking. The guilds will take the 10 generals themselves, everyone, so that not a single one ends up in his way. Hoyal gets Decoravia alone. The section closes on him lighting up. Wreathed in that blazing aura, under 2 words the story just flatly stamps on the page. Humanity's honor, one man squaring off against a demon king the size of a mountain, refusing to fold even in the deepest, darkest despair he has ever stood in. This is the last stand. Everything the video has been building toward the whole season comes down to this one fight. This is it. Grandfell and Decoravia tear into each other through the ruins of frost, sword against claw, both of them bloodied, neither of them giving an inch, and she spends the whole fight sneering at the thing that dragged all these people here. Humanity's honor. She calls it a stupid illusion, a story humans tell themselves so they never have to notice how small they are. And for a while, honestly, she is winning that argument. She is the size of a mountain and he is one man with a sword, and every exchange costs him blood. His coat torn, his face streaked with it, both of them refusing to be the one who steps back. When he finally gets the opening to start the exorcism ritual, a scorpion-tailed shape of her lunges at him, roaring that a mere human like him could not possibly, and he sets the ritual anyway, working right through the noise. But she picked the wrong day because behind Hoyo, the honor thing is actually working. One by one the resurrected generals go down under the combined guilds, and every general that falls peels a little more power off of her. An ally shouts that Harkin has done it. A status alert confirms the supreme commander of the demon army has fallen. The surviving enemy officers are rattled, spitting that they will not lose twice to some inferior human. And Timon, running on fumes, is shoving himself forward with the line, "We have to at least do better than Nam Timon," which, if you have watched this whole thing, is a guy who is finally proud enough of his own name to compete with it. And then Hoyal runs dry. The exorcism ritual is the one weapon that actually banishes a demon instead of just wounding it, and it runs on mana, and the system tells him flatly he does not have enough. The ritual is being cancelled, which is the exact moment the whole season has quietly been walking toward, because Hoyal looks at that warning and answers, "We do have mana," and he reaches for the one reserve he has spent his entire life refusing to touch. Inner darkness, the thing Matthijs's ring read as the deepest black it had ever measured, back when the black magic scholar first realized Hoyal was carrying something no ordinary player should be able to carry. The thing sitting under the oath and the heavy sins he buried so carefully, the reserve he has kept a lid on his entire life precisely because he was afraid of what it was. And here, with a whole city about to die, he finally stops being afraid of it and starts spending it. He pours it into the ritual, and what comes off of him is so wrong that the people watching stop cheering and start screaming that this is not ordinary dark magic, this is something else entirely. And for the first time all season, the Demon King is the one who is afraid. Decoravia gets out half a sentence, "This darkness is not," and never finishes it because the ritual takes her. The system does not do drama, it just states it, plain white text over a snowbound city. "You have defeated Demon King Decoravia, you have successfully recaptured Frost, you have entered the regained hope Northern City Frost." A news broadcast blinks awake to report that the frozen city everyone had already written off just came back from the dead. The Demon King raid is over, Frost is human again. But Hoyal does not get to feel good about it. Back home safe, decompressing on his own couch, he cannot put down the last thing she said to him. Killing her cracked something open, a plume of black smoke rising off the corpse, and out of it dropped a brand new quest with a name that lands like a stone. Action's legacy. Action, the Demon Hunter's holy land, the one that fell years before any of this started. 152 dead and not a single survivor. The whole reason he is the last of his class left alive. The quest ties straight back to that childhood he walked through inside Grandfell's own mind, the oath to kill demons for the rest of his life, the heavy sins he swore to pay for with his own death. And sitting right on top of all of it are Decoravia's dying words, the ones he cannot shake. This darkness is not something a human can possess. While he is chewing on that, the rest of the world moves on without him. Harkin pulls through his wounds, bedridden but alive, an attendant named Ysal fussing over him, and King Hakuna himself shows up to check on him in person, collecting a feather hoyal left behind from one of Dekaravia's monstrous birds, the proof he needs before he can go stand in front of the Emperor of Arcana again. Over in Japan, Inazuma's Kazuma gets chewed out by his own guild elders for losing ground to the Korean guilds, and he snaps right back at them. Was he supposed to just let every civilian in Hokkaido die for a scoreboard, and the whole guild decides to walk away from Japan and seek asylum in the Yusra archipelago instead? Chialman, the tank who got possessed in a cellar back in the second episode and needed Hoyal to pull a demon out of him, becomes chief of the Barbarian Plains, and his flustered press conference face instantly turns into a meme. Even the streamer Park H-Wigging gets a scene, going viral for saying with a completely straight face that all he really wants out of any of this is world peace. And in the pettiest possible touch, there's a forum post going around about the Frost Recapture reward event, and it turns out a calculation error is holding up everyone's payout. Because of course the biggest raid in the history of the world ends with a busted spreadsheet. And Jessie Hyness, the witch who landed the finishing blow on Count Ascura, quietly steps back from the Shining Guild. When people push her on why she is leaving, she insists she never said she was leaving, that she would only go somewhere if it were for Mr. Hoyal, and since he has dropped clean off the face of the earth, she just says softly, "I disappeared." And on that line, the story puts up a card, the player hides his past, Season 1, end. And that is the cruel joke the whole season was building. The man spent every episode certain his past was just an embarrassing costume, and it turned out to be a real wound, with a real oath and a real graveyard underneath it. He beat the first deadly sin and a demon king with the one dead-end class nobody else on Earth could use, and he still cannot outrun the history that made him. Which is exactly when the universe decides to kick him one more time for laughs. He is holed up indoors, dodging a phone that will not stop buzzing with missed calls, getting absolutely nowhere on the Action's Legacy quest, finally deciding he might as well go dig through the Mage Tower library, when his status screen casually mentions that beating Dekaravia auto-leveled him about 30 levels in one shot, dropped a shiny new sealed knowledge item in his lap, and quietly stretched his authority so it works in Frost now, not just Yusra. Fine, great, then a special quest pops. A new star has risen in Frost, come attend the ceremony appointing the city's new lord, already underway. He did not nominate himself, he did not agree to a thing, he never even left the room. And the ceremony wraps up anyway, and the system cheerfully informs him you are Frost's lord, as an entire guild menu unlocks in his face. And Hoyal does the only reasonable thing a person can do. He chokes out a strangled, high-pitched what and nearly falls out of his chair. That is Season 1. A guy who wanted to be nobody, crowned lord of a city against his will, sitting on a buried past that is finally starting to surface, and a darkness even a demon king said no human should be able to hold. Season 2 picks up right there with Action's Legacy and whatever that darkness actually is. If this one was worth your time, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in Frost for Season 2.